Good morning, everyone. We are 2 minutes late. Me and John have been having a jibber jabber in the background for the last half an hour. John, welcome, mate. Thanks for tuning in this morning, or should I say, you're in the past up there in the USA, up there in Oregon. 17 hours behind, mate. Saturday afternoon over there.
It is. It's just after 4 in the afternoon here. Fortunately, when we do these live streams, you do all the maths, as you would say, to get me up to speed and get me all, like I said, ready to go.
That must hurt you to say maths instead of math.
It feels very unnatural. Yes.
Well, I do a lot of the young kids here. They go, "Oh, just doing the math." I'll go, "It's maths, mate. It's short for mathematics, plural." And I'm just anal on that shit. I hate a lot of our kids here, mate. They see so much American stuff on their social media and that.
Oh, sure.
And they pronounce them words the same as you. And the good one, we're going to talk about it soon, is my video from yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to talk about that and how we pronounce, what was the word a scallop. So we're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, we'll get in. We'll say good morning to everyone. All the normal suspects are on. Hey, guys, if you're on and you don't know John here, we did a live feed. Oh, how long ago, mate? It was about a 3 hour.
It's been a while. Yeah. It was probably a year ago, maybe. I jumped on one. You sent me a link, and I was at Hovenweed, and it barely worked. But the one prior was here at the house.
That's right. You were out camping and snuck on for a sneaky one, and we had a quick chat. But the big long one we did. If you don't know John, guys, and that's I think how we ended up hooking up, mate. We're from very, very similar backgrounds. You're a former US Marine back in the early days, and then became a police officer when you got out of the Marines. And I was very similar. I was ex-Australian Army, and then went over and become a Queensland police officer. So we're from and both happily retired now, mate.
And we're both content creators now. So
well, there you go. You don't get much more closer than that.
My daughter, Buck, you'll appreciate this, because I was like, well, I can't really call myself a professional YouTuber because I don't make any money. And she's like, well, you don't have to say professional. You just say full-time. If you don't make any money on it, it's full-time. It's not professional.
Yeah, you just say, I just say I'm retired. I don't consider myself a full-time YouTuber. I still consider YouTube for me, mate, a hobby. And it is. It's a hobby. Yeah. And I enjoyed it. And you're the same as me. You love going out camping and starting a campfire and all that. And if you can create some content from it. I hate the word influencer. That annoys me. Content creator. We create content for people to watch.
Well, and honestly, if you buy something because I said to, please don't blame me, because that's just a bad decision on your part. I mean, it's because I'm just a dude that, I make so many mistakes. Like if you watch any of my content, most of it is me goofing stuff up. Stick around to the end because it usually won't work.
And that's what I always have a laugh, and that when I watch your stuff, you're always taking the piss out of yourself. I reckon you're too hard on yourself, mate. You got more skill than you give yourself credit for, and your videos and that are very good, I think. And anyway, it started in the comment section already.
Yeah.
Whether it's called a potato scallop or a potato cake or a potato fritter.
Well, let me set them straight. I'll set, like I had to set you straight. That is not all. That's made up Australian bullshit. What they're called is they're a latke. It's a Jewish paste, or it's a Jewish potato pancake, basically. And I make them for holidays and things like that. What's that?
Just the slice of potato that's deep fried in batter, not grated and turned into a...
Oh, yeah. I'll give you that one, Buck. You can call that whatever you want, because nobody's breading potatoes here other than at a gas station. So it's not a thing.
So a potato scallop, as we call them in Queensland, a slice of potato battered, it's not a big... Because you go to a fish and chip shop anywhere in Australia, you will get potato, whatever you want to call it, potato scallop, potato cake, potato fritter, depends what state you're from. They'll be there, and they'll always be in a service station, the hot food section.
We'll have like the big steak fries, or we call them JoJo's, and occasionally they'll be breaded, but typically, well, I personally prefer my stuff just fried or deep fried or whatever. I mean, if you want to get super unhealthy about your potato products, but no, typically we don't batter or bread, like stack bad things on top of each other. At least not like that.
Oh, righto. So the thing that I did that I called a potato cake, which was the grated one, you said that's from a Jewish background or something, called a latke or something.
Yeah, basically it's like a Jewish pancake, effectively, as simplistically as, and you'll make them sometimes with cream cheese, or there's a variety. Like the stuff you put in yours was very acceptable in my experience. My very small non-Jewish experience of making latkes myself. I married into the faith. I didn't grow up that way. So I try to.
Dana's from a Jewish background, is she, mate?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay, righto.
And but again, it's something fun I do on holidays and things. And you know, now it's just Dana and I in the house, so we're not like hanging out, and I'm not just like firing latkes downrange all the time. It's something I did when the kids were younger, for holidays. But
the United States, you do have a large population of Jewish people over in the States, mate. I was talking to John before we went live, everyone. Roz and I were up having breakfast in Cairns a couple of months ago at a nice little cafe on the beach. And there was a guy sitting there on his laptop, and he had what's the little Pope's beanie called, mate?
It's called a yarmulke. But well, here's the thing, Buck. If you're only seeing people with yarmulkes and identifying them as Jewish, you're probably missing a couple, because most Jewish guys aren't wearing yarmulkes unless it's a holiday or some sort of service related thing. But like none of my my in-laws, well, we all have yarmulkes for special events and occasions and that sort of thing, but nobody's like wearing them around. My wife's from Huntington Beach, California, not a big Jewish, stronghold, if you will. But and we're on the West Coast and East Coast, a little bit different, but and like you have your Christian face where you'll have people that are, say, Roman Catholic or Church of England or Baptist or whatever. There's different kind of parts within the Jewish faith as well. And so that's where you'll get people who are more observant, we'll say, and lead a much more kosher lifestyle will wear yarmulkes. And again, if you're relying on me to try to describe the Jewish faith, you're probably out of luck, because we've just exhausted my, this is like a 30,000 foot view. I'm not certainly I'm not an expert on anything, but me being an expert on the Jewish faith, that's not a good policy.
Well, you probably know more about it than Aussies, because it's not I can't, even in the army, I never can remember someone, no one really talked about what religion you were in the army, but we had it on our dog tags, mate. I don't know, in the Marines, mate, was your religion on your dog tags at all?
It was, yes.
Yeah, same as us.
But again, it wasn't something that, in your day-to-day life in the Marines, religion's not high among the,
No, same as us, mate. I mean,
what you're up to.
Even in this thing here, mate, there's probably some religious people in here, but most, I don't know, it's just not a subject you really talk about down here in Australia. Religion's kind of losing its, I don't know, it's just the way it's going. But
that's kind of the we're US and Australia are the same in that respect, where they're, getting more and more secular, basically. And obviously we're on a live stream now. And again, the two things that I'm not equipped to talk confidently about are religion and politics. So
that's it. That was religion and politics were the two subjects that would get you a smack in the teeth at the bar at a pub in the old days in Australia. If you talked about those two subjects, someone would whack you. So it was like everyone say, you go into a pub, don't talk about that. You talk about sport, and then you can have a fight over what footy team you follow or something.
Well, that's the amazing part. You just brought it up, and it just brought something up in my head. So I'm talking to Carrie and John, the people from the last video, and they were out camping, And so they're from the Midwest. And so I believe that they're huge. I don't want to mess this up because they're like super fanatical football people, but I think they're Chicago Bears fans. And he was out somewhere in Eastern or Central Oregon, maybe in Idaho even. Anyway, the story is he goes into this little pub or a restaurant or something, and they wear, the like you like wearing your jerseys. They were wearing something affiliated, and I want to say that they're Bears fans. Anyway, they basically got assaulted for the team. It's like some full shit that it was a little unexpected when Carrie was telling me this story. I was like, oh my God, really? Somebody like cared if you're wearing a jersey or a hat or whatever for a sports team was a little bit, I was like, oh my God, what is this? 1975 and you're like in Wisconsin somewhere or something.
Yeah, exactly. I know, not that I go to nightclubs anymore, mate, but they never used to. A lot of places wouldn't let you wear your jerseys and that into nightclubs because it used to, create someone have a few beers and that's how it starts. If someone's full of alcohol, but do you follow the NFL at all, mate? Have you got a team? Because the Seahawks would be your closest team.
Yes, I'm not a Seahawks fan. No, when I was much younger, I was a Houston Oilers fan, but then they moved the team, and there's like, this is like in the 80s, right? Back in the days of like Bum Phillips, Earl Campbell was their running back, and just like what I think of as the good old days. And then when John Elway got signed by the Denver Broncos, I was a Broncos fan for years and years. But honestly, I haven't kept up with football in 15 or 20 years. I haven't been, in the U.S. it's kind of we've got national holidays, and one of them is Super Bowl day. So that's, like when the Super Bowl's on, I'm not a fan, but I watch the Super Bowl. I mean, you just can't not, right? But no, and I may watch a playoff game. I mean, they're entertaining. My closest professional team is actually the Oregon Ducks, which will offend. You want to piss a lot of people off in the state of Oregon. Like the guy that owns Nike, Phil Knight. The running joke in the state of Oregon, that's where Nike is based in Oregon. But and so everybody always asks Phil Knight why he doesn't own a professional football team, and his response, and this is the joke, is that he already does. They're called the Ducks, which is a college team here in Oregon.
Well, the college football there is almost as big as the NFL. It's massive, mate. The college teams, aren't they?
It is, and that's the thing about the Oregon Ducks that's so weird is we're a very rural state. Not a lot of people live here, and we have this little college, University of Oregon, which punches way above their weight. Like it's not unusual for them to be in the talks about who's going to be the national champion or going and playing for the national. So it is a bit unusual, but I'm not saying money's changing hands. Don't hate me, but now it's legal for them to pay college players. So good luck the rest of the country. But they, like I said, allegedly way back in the day, we may have had a pro team then too. I don't know anything specific.
Hey, the Houston Oilers, did they become the Houston Texans? Did they?
Oh, you're going to make me look dumb or dumber. I know they became something else. And then they, I don't remember. It was another, it was so they moved away. No, I think what they did is let me think about this. This is 25, 30 years ago. The Browns got sold and moved their team maybe. And then they moved the Oilers up there and they became the Browns. And then Houston didn't have a team. I don't remember, Buck. There was it was very dramatic at the time, but again, you're talking probably early to mid 1990s, and maybe somebody in the comment that you can Google it, what happened, but yeah, they moved the team.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Hey, I'm not going to do a poll because I don't know how to ask three different things, but what I want everyone to do, guys, is I want you to get on your computer, whatever you're on now, and either type scallop, cake, or fritter. Those three words, scallop, cake, or fritter. and let me know, and that way I can pretty well too. I got on Pete from WA Camp and got on to me. He said, Buck, I can confirm they're called potato scallops over in Western Australia. So, as I said, Queensland, New South Wales, Australian Capital Territory, which is basically just Canberra and the surrounds, and Western Australia call them things. Now, the other thing I did want to do,
we call them. So we do have scallop potatoes, but it's like something from the 1970s that your mom would make, and it would be a big casserole pan, and you would have scallop potatoes and then cheese on top.
Yeah,
and that's what we, at least where I am and that my growing up, that was scallop potatoes. Is your mom would bake up a big pan of sliced potatoes with the, and I'm sure people had different experiences, but basically with some version of cheese melted in it. And then, you'd let it cool a little bit and then cut it up and then serve the scallop potatoes.
We call that a potato bake, the scallop potatoes. So sliced potatoes, and then there's cheese, and there's, I think Roz puts a bit of French onion soup through it. Like, it makes a bit of a, need a bit of a sauce so that the potatoes soak up the juice. Cooking. Justin Dillon, give yourself an uppercut. He's a filthy Victorian, mate. He's from, we call them Mexican. We call Victorians Mexicans because they're south of the border. And as I said, Victoria are bloody. They like doing things different. They are a different sort, and they drink Victoria bitter beer, which is the filthiest beer in this country. I don't know if you're a beer drinker, John. What would be the worst beer that everyone calls cat's piss or something like that? What would be the worst beer in the United States?
Two. Bud Light would be the worst, and then Coors Light would be right behind it. And then anything more recently, because everybody's trying to cut carbs and stuff here, we have like these Michelob Ultras and oh shit, they make something called White Claw. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
White Claw is almost like a seltzer water with alcohol. It's almost like a hard lemonade type situation, and only they make a bunch of different flavors. They're just god awful. But no, I don't drink much beer. Oregon, weirdly enough, is pretty famous for their microbrews and distilling. And so, I mean, if you're a beer lover, come to Oregon or come to the West Coast. Really, it's anywhere on the West Coast. But back in the 1980s, it really took off here locally to where I'm at. And so, in fact, tomorrow night we're going with Rick and his wife. In fact, if you watched any of my older videos, Rick makes a few different appearances on my mechanical projects. He's my buddy that is a professional mechanic that helps me kind of get together. Like, he's my safety net, right? Rick is, and he's hilarious. He's like the driest, most cutthroat dude you've ever met. But anyway, he and I and our wives are going to a local brew pub for, and I think brewing is a pretty big deal down where you're at, isn't it? Like, you have brew pubs where they make their own beer, right?
They're getting very, very popular everywhere now. There's, I find a lot of them make these beers that they're called a craft beer down here, and they're very, some of them are very perfumey. Like, they're just too much flavor in that in them. I don't know. It's like someone's tipped in a bottle of perfume or aftershave lotion. That's
I'm not a big sweets guy. Some of the fruity stuff and some of that I'm not down for. If I get a beer, it's usually, because I don't drink them very often. It is a dark beer. I'll do maybe a stout. Old Rasputin is a favorite of mine. And then there, believe it or not, we have a monastery close by, about an hour and 15 minutes from the house, an abbot where the monks make the beer. And they have a killer sense of humor about it. Like, my favorite beer, bar none, is a dark beer they make called Black Habit. And but yeah, they're funny. I've been down there a few times, and whenever I pass through that area, we stop by and pick up a couple of beers. But they do just an incredible job.
Yeah, we had there's a beer called Tooheys Old, which is made in New South Wales. That's a I don't know if it's a stout or whatever, but that's a nice beer as well. I don't mind. I don't mind Guinness as far as stouts and that go. And there was another. I think it's an English beer, Newcastle Brown Ale.
Yeah.
I like the darker beers myself too. They're not too bad. So,
but yeah, I gotta stay off the beer, man. It's I gotta watch my waistline and that.
Especially when you stop work, mate.
Oh, dude.
Someone on here, where was it? Logan. White Claw sucks. I agree, John. So he must have tried White Claw.
They're super popular. Again, they're one of these deals where they have the alcohol, but they're, everybody's so concerned about their carbs and that sort of thing. I think they're a low carb, unlike most beer, which is obviously you get tons of carbohydrates.
This doesn't make sense to me. Might to you, mate. Steve Webb said, "Is that a Trappist beer, John?"
I don't know if they're Trappist monks. I'm unclear. I'm not a Catholic, so I just know they're monks. They got the outfit, much in the same bucks pointing out Jewish people by their yarmulkes. I'm pointing out Catholics now by the robes they're wearing. So I don't know. They're very jolly, and they have a super good sense of humor. But and they make wonderful beer. What's that?
They're probably pissed all the time. That's why they're jolly.
If I was making beer, you probably bet on it. Yeah.
So pissed to us. If you're pissed down here, you're drunk. If you're pissed off, you're angry. So, but if you say I'm pissed, that means angry in the United States.
Yeah.
But pissed here means you're drunk.
Yeah.
It's funny, like, sometimes the way you guys pronounce your words, it's more correct than now the English invented the language, mate, and I reckon they butchered it. They absolutely butcher it. But we say scallop, but when you look at the spelling, it's scallop, and that's exactly how you pronounce it. And there's a lot of other words in the English language where, as much as we hate to admit it, you think the Yanks are pronouncing it correctly, and it's the English and Aussies and that, we've butchered it out, and the Poms invented the language, mate. Another one is my grandson, a little turd. He said, tomato. Hey, Pop, you got any tomatoes? And I just steam automatically out my ears. I said, it's a tomato, mate. And he goes, there's no R in it. I said, yes, there is. It's silent and invisible. There is an R in tomato. I said, and he goes, and then a little smart ass, he goes, well, why isn't it potato then instead of potato? And I thought, he's got me. He's got me in a corner, and he's got me. I haven't got to come back for that one.
So basically, you're an Australian Dan Quayle at this point.
So yeah, whoever thought tomato? There's no R in it, but we'll just put an R in there anyway. Just but you guys say tomato, and that's probably the correct way to say it. Same as scallop with an A. We say scallop. Or is it just North Queensland we say scallop? Maybe. Does anyone say scallop down south or in any different states of Australia? I'm sure it's pronounced scallop.
Well, I mean, to be fair, does anybody pronounce it the correct way versus Buck's pronunciation?
Exactly. I've had people in the comment section go, is this guy putting his accent on? Like, no one talks like that. I'm just thinking, where are you from, mate? They're probably some inner Sydney, inner Melbourne that have never been out of the concrete jungle to see what Australians talk like,
well, if your country is large enough, like, population wise, not so much, but geographically, you're doomed to have regional accents. That was, I don't know about in your army, but when I was in the Marines, I had number of dudes that were, from, in my mind, the kind of effed up states in the south of the United States, with the thick Southern accents. And they would always tease me about my accent. And I'm like, hey, let's flip on the news and how's Dan Rather talking, or how the broadcaster's talking. They talk like I do. They don't talk like you do. So one of us has a messed up accent, but it ain't me.
Well, to me, you've got a typical what an American sounds like, obviously from the northern, but obviously down here you can even tell the Southerners, they've got that real Southern draw and all that. But we do, I guess we do. North Queensland, we go A, we talk and we kind of go A at the end of our sentences, like we turn everything into a question. No, it's not a bad day, And it's like you're compelling. Someone has to agree with you. Go, yeah, it's not a bad day, is it? We turn everything into a question with
But
saying,
when you were on the podcast with Pete, is there a WA accent? Because you guys sounded pretty similar to me.
Yeah. And I was about to say that. Pete's on the other side of the country. I'm in the northeast, he's in the southwest.
Yeah.
I think we sound the same. People might, and I got in a taxi once in Melbourne, and he said to me, "Are you from Queensland?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "I could tell because you say a, not a bad day, mate." Not like we say a all the time, and I think that people pick up you from Queensland. Little idiosyncrasies in that, but the actual accent. I mean, if you speak to Pete from West Aussie, Phil Taylor, or Marky Lavelle down in New South Wales, you probably would never tell. You can't. I can't tell what state someone's from. Sometimes you can tell the crow eaters, mate, the South Australians, instead of a pot plant, they'll go pot plant. It's like they say, they put R's into their words. We do some like you say in the army we used to put antennas on. It was a 27-foot mast, so it's an extended mast.
Big
you say mast.
Antenna, yeah,
you say mast or whatever, 27-foot mast. We say mast. We do put an R in there sometimes, but the South Australians, they'll go dance, plant. They that's how they, and it's more of
I've got a quiz for you, Buck. That antenna with the tall mast, was it a Mark 183?
No, an RC292. We used to throw a VHF antenna called an RC292 on top of that one.
Oh, so it was a mast actually with a smaller antenna on top.
Yeah.
Because we had
put the mast up, and the antenna would go on the top. It'd have elements at the bottom,
ground plane,
a ground wave, and the actual whip antenna on top was the receive.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I misunderstood. Yeah, because we had a radio with a 32-foot whip that was just a straight HF. So it's all antenna. And I know we share probably many of the same radios because Buck and I are both comm guys from the military. But I would be willing to bet that the Australian military and the U.S. military share a lot of comm gear, even though they're going to call it something different.
A lot of our stuff back in the day was all American, mate. Our big HF set was ANGRC 106, which was American.
Okay.
We had the receiver transmitter, the 524 receiver transmitter.
RT 524, baby. Yeah, I use those. That's a VHF set.
Yeah, that's right. And we used to use it by itself. It was called a 46 set. And in a retrans mode, there was two 524s used, and it was called the 49 set. So, but the receiver transmitter was a 524. We had the Angry 39s for remoting into a CP or something. I think that was an American bit of kit as well.
We had Mark 135s, which was two 524s and then two of just the receive side, and then a multiplexer, so we could run four or eight phone lines over VHF.
Yeah.
And that was a
lot of our stuff is American.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Anyway, let's get on with others. Let's not talk about the military anymore. I'm done with Well, honestly, I'm 30 years separated from the military. Whatever I was doing is long since passed.
Yeah, I know, mate. It's there's nothing exists from our day anymore, mate. They've got new vehicles, new weapons, new everything. I just went to put up ask John if they have snot blocks. Now, we have a thing at the bakery. It's a sweet, and it's called a vanilla slice, and it's basically a custard in between a pastry, and the custard looks like, we used to call them snot blocks. Snot as in out of your nose. We used to call them snot blocks. I went into a bakery the other day and asked for a snot block, and the lady looked absolutely horrified behind the counter. Everyone's lost their sense of humor now, mate.
I have no idea. Yeah, I'm sure we have some sort of, I'm not a pastry expert either. I don't know. Maybe we have them, but.
Well, if you go into a bakery in the United States, mate, do you have meat pies? Like if you go into a bakery,
no. In fact, that was
meat pies and bread. That's it.
Yeah, no, we don't. I mean, yes, we have some meat pies occasionally, but not typically in a bakery. we'll have donuts and scones and whatever else. But no, it's very unusual, and it's not a normal thing. Like I said, you can have the thing I most naturally associate with a meat pie is like something you can get in the freezer section of the supermarket and
Yeah.
maybe microwave or put in the oven. And it's just not a thing.
Gee whiz, wouldn't it be good if you went over to if an Aussie went over to the United States, and most bakeries now, mate, also do really good coffees. And if you watch a lot of Americans come to Australia and they go, my God, the coffee down here, because we don't drink percolated shit in that, mate. It's like a proper espresso shot with the milk in there, and they can do a pattern in the top of the milk. And we have really good coffees here in Australia. And I think if you went over to the United States and opened up a bakery and a coffee shop and did proper Aussie coffee, cappuccinos, latte, all that type of stuff, and have a good mixture of meat pies, plain meat, chunky beef, bacon and cheese, chili pie. I just think it'd go off, mate.
Now, do you normally eat those is that like a breakfast food or a lunch thing or
Is an any time of the day food, mate. Meat pies, we'll eat them any time. It doesn't have to be a time of the day. Beautiful.
So it's not like a breakfast sandwich or something where
no. You get a meat pie for most people will go and get the bakeries will be busy in the morning selling fresh bread and all that, but usually around what we call smoko time, about 10 o'clock in the morning, that's where people used to love to go to a bakery and grab a couple of nice sausage. When I say sausage rolls, like sausage mince in a pastry, and that's what it's not a sausage in a roll, but or get a meat pie and that, all your tradies will go to a bakery and grab a couple of meat pies, and we have all different flavors. And
oh no, if you're in the trades here, you wait for the truck to show up.
Yeah, the gut truck.
Yeah, and and they're usually, especially here on the West Coast, it's breakfast burritos. In fact, it was funny that for years and years and years, the best Mexican food in Sandy, which is the closest town to where I live, on my way to work, the gas station had these ladies that worked there that just had set up their own little lunch counter in there, and they would make breakfast burritos to order, and it was the best food in town. Now they have food carts now and a variety of things and some other good restaurants, but at the time, and the ladies have since moved on, but 20 years ago, these ladies, these lady entrepreneurs, if you will, had set up a lunch counter in a gas station, and and guys would line up. Like it was a small gas station, so there's maybe 4 pumps in the whole place, and there'd be cars parked on the street, and just guys lined up at the lunch counter to get their either their breakfast burrito or their lunch burrito early in the 5 a.m. There'd be 10 people lined up, 10 guys deep at the counter.
See, Mexican food here is more of a you go to a Mexican restaurant for dinner for at tea time or for dinner time, but certainly not for breakfast and that. Yeah, we're into the meat pies and the sausage rolls and all that type of stuff and that. So yeah. Hey mate, a new video dropped this morning. I noticed before we came on and did our
it did.
Let everyone know about your YouTube channel, 143JKRD. I know what the JKRD is. That's family initials. I forgot what the 143 stands for.
Oh, no problem. It means I love you. It's one is I, love, 4 letters. U is 3 letters, 143. And so it's very simple. And then the acronym is my kids and my wife's initials. So John, Kira, Risha, Dana. See, I got them all out in one shot.
Guys, if you want to see John, we're going to get into the camping thing now. I know everyone loves talking about camping. There's your channel there, mate. 143JKRD. And you camp in you call it a trailer. We call it a little small caravan down here.
Right.
Casita, which we don't get those here. We're a casita, mate. They're an American made thing. And obviously
they're made in Texas. And the one we have is it's a fiberglass caravan. I can't see the pictures, Buck, if you're putting them up there.
No, I'm not, mate. I haven't got any.
Oh,
okay. I wasn't ready to go. So yeah.
Oh yeah, no worries. Anyway, it's a 17-foot fiberglass single axle travel trailer, basically. And ours, the cool thing about Casita specifically, or even, there's 4 or 5 different brands, kind of main brands of fiberglass travel trailers, and this is true of all of them, is, well, Casita specifically doesn't really change much. So mine is a 1999, and you can buy a 2025 and get the same model with the same floor plan, many of the same things. They're very minor updates. You know, I think they may have lithium batteries, and of course they have LED light fixtures now and things like that. But the cool thing for me, and you and I spoke briefly about it, Buck, is that I can buy this 25-year-old travel trailer that's in, well, mine was in a fixer-upper. I mean, to be completely blunt, it needed work when I bought it, but the price reflected that. The cool thing is it maintains this brand, or this type of trailer really maintains its value. I know you've traded off a variety of RVs, Buck, but typically if you buy a brand new caravan, as you would call them, you're, you know, and say you keep it 10 years, you might have 10 cents on the dollar when you go to trade it off. They just don't hold their value, at least not here. Where the fiberglass is much like an Airstream, if you're familiar with that brand here. They're the stainless steel, kind of look like an airplane fuselage style trailer. Anyway, you can buy my trailer brand new, I think, for about $35,000, and then have it for 10 years and probably sell it for 20. You know, so you're not taking that loss. You know, and if you buy them absolute poverty spec like I did, I'm probably going to make a little bit of money on it, because it's in much better shape now and will be in much better condition than the day I bought it. But they hold their value, because again, with any RV, I look at it as a platform to kind of go do things that I want to do, not necessarily as an investment. And it, you know, if your worldview of vehicles and RVs specifically is as some sort of investment, I've got an island or a bridge to sell you, because that's not that's not been my reality at all.
You buy them for your own enjoyment, mate. And I know there's a lot of people on here would love, if you haven't subscribed to John's channel, guys, go in and check it out when you get off here. He's got an old 1999 Casita, little fiberglass caravan, we would call it down here, and you've done some, you know, some little modifications to it, mate, to make it better. You put a little batwing awning on it. You've got lithium batteries in there. Speaking of which, you wouldn't believe this. I was watching your clip the other day, and John does a good walk around his little caravan, guys, and shows you some of the modifications he's done. And you're certainly handier on the tools. I know you don't give yourself enough credit, mate. When it comes to handyman stuff, you're a lot better than what I am. Some of the things you've done on that little van, I wouldn't be able to do myself. But
well, you just have to try. And then of course I have YouTube. You know, I cheat. You know, I go on and watch other people's tutorials and things. But you know, the fact of the matter is, especially for mechanical stuff, I'm pretty comfortable doing that.
Thanks,
but I guess I don't like paying guys for stuff I can do. And you know, and you and I both do this, Buck, which is, you know, we both have a pretty serious eye on the checkbook when we're making, hey, Mike, I just saw his comment pop up. But, you know, we both, you know, we try to both live within our means. And, you know, and you and I had a very short discussion before this. And, you know, if you're watching this live stream, one of two things. One of my subscribers has stumbled into this mistakenly, and you're probably in the US, or you're watching Buck's channel. So if you're coming from my perspective in the US and you watch Australian content, you would think that you need a $120,000 Land Cruiser double cab with a tray and a canopy, and then you know, a 5-meter caravan that's going to cost you another $100,000 or $150,000. And then if you're in Australia and you're watching content in the United States, and you're watching maybe some of the places that Dana and I have gone over the last year, where we've gone to Moab and we've gone to 8 or 9 national parks in the last year, well, more than that, in these kind of spectacular locations, you would think one of two things: that you have to go out and spend $250,000 on an adventure van, maybe a Sprinter or something like that, that's all kitted out with all this stuff. And you don't. The reality is that, Dana and I took a car we already own. Now that's the big ticket item in our setup, is we do have a
Yeah.
new 4Runner
Yeah.
that's paid for, but we already own the car. And but knowing that we wanted to travel as extensively as we have, uh, and the absolute, I hate buying cars. I'll be honest. I like buying old junky ones, like
Yeah.
on my channel. But
Yeah.
buying a new, going to a car dealer and actually, signing up for $50,000 to buy a new car is kind of madness to me. So I that was one of my requirements when we're making plans to travel, was we needed something that our current vehicles would tow
Yes.
safely. And then the other thing, that my wife's requirement, Dana's requirement, was that we have a bathroom.
Yeah.
And
And
if you get
yeah.
much smaller in the caravan world, I don't know how it is there, you're going to be going to the bathroom outside.
Yeah.
If you get like a 15 or 14 foot or whatever kind of thing. And I've owned other RVs, and Buck, I know you had that caravan you got rid of. It was, you never publicized what kind of was going on with it, but I suspect there was some issues of some kind. And I've had other RVs where, much like where you live, it rains hundreds of inches or 150 inches of rain a year here. And
Yeah.
I also needed something small enough that I could park under cover regardless. And then
Yeah.
obviously, a casita is built like a boat, so it's fiberglass. So
Yeah.
inherently, you have some advantages over a stick frame, stapled together
Yeah.
RV. And
And then
that played in.
you said something before, mate, is
Uh-huh.
you and Dana get out you got a nice vehicle, a Toyota
Yeah.
4Runner. You got a
Mhm.
1999 casita with nothing flash, but it keeps you dry. Dana's got
Mhm.
a little bathroom to go to. I think that's a big thing for the ladies, is to have somewhere to, that
Oh, for sure.
ladies don't want to go out and have to bloody dig a hole. And
Well,
we
here's
can
the thing, Buck. I never realized how differently men and women view, especially long-term travel. Like, you made your half lap up Australia,
yeah,
and I was recently sitting down with Carrie, who I've made a couple videos with now, and we're probably going to make another collaborative video just talking about security and long-distance travel for women. And she wanted me to make the video, and I was like, well, it's not going to mean much coming from a middle-aged dude, right? Like a male. But she and I'm not sure if it's going to air on her channel or mine, and we haven't gotten too in depth. But she brought up several factors about women, how women view their personal safety and things like that on these trips. And
yeah, right.
and to you and I, we probably don't even think about it, or I don't.
No,
It's not something that I worry about in my personal safety any more than any other, me going to the shopping mall or whatever down the street.
yeah,
It's not something, but for women travelers, especially solo women travelers, it's something that they take very seriously typically.
yeah.
And
I
and I,
guess I don't think a lot of people here. I don't think safety. When we think about safety, we're probably thinking, you're traveling on the roads. It's the most dangerous thing for us, is traveling on the roads. And I
oh, that's
always
me
get on
too.
about snake
Yeah,
safety. Snake safety. That is, I
yeah,
guess here, like bloody. It's not like there's a million snakes around your swag, but
right. Or in my
getting stung
case,
by a bloody
cow
bad snake is a,
safety. Yeah,
yeah. We don't have bears and all that, but safety, as in safety from other people and that. But as you know, we don't
yeah.
have a gun culture down here, mate. I'm not saying it could never happen here and someone
Hmm.
gets in trouble with their safety. It's probably happened, but I don't think it's a big thing we take into consideration down here. Ours is mainly travel safety and, just be smart when you're out bush. Don't go into long grass and bloody, where
Hmm.
snakes can be. And you've have the same. You've got
Yeah.
snakes over in the United States, bloody the same
But
as we do.
again, my mindset is the same as yours, Buck, where when I'm thinking of safety, I'm making sure. Sorry, I just got a text message here.
Yeah.
Oh, Carrie's watching us. Hi
Gary.
to Carrie. But anyway, when I think about safety, it has entirely a different context. It has to do with, like you're talking about, am I keeping a proper distance between me and the vehicle in front of me? Is the road
Yeah.
safe? Is the car going to break down mechanically, or things like that? And then wildlife
Mike wants to know what's Kerry's channel's name, mate.
Oh boy, and she's watching too. So it's a careful life.
Yeah.
It's ITS capital KARI. It's a careful life, and then capital LIFE. So if you put the @ in front of that, it should pop up on YouTube.
Oh, okay. I'll send it to you, Mike. I'll send you the link when I've got your email there, Mike. And
actually, I've got Mike on Facebook too.
Oh yeah,
but
yeah, it's good. Cam Wild the other day. Cam and Tiffany's young kids are doing a lap of Australia at the moment, and Cam said something funny too. This is American and Australia. We're on different sheets of music sometimes, and Cam's getting a lot of questions. Hey man, what do you do for personal safety? What gun are you carrying? And Cam goes, I don't carry a gun, mate. We don't have to.
Like, well, don't tell anybody, Buck, but I don't travel with a firearm.
No.
I don't. And I probably have, I have guns. But the reality is that my biggest worry, and I think statistically this would be true, is that when we're traveling, my biggest fear isn't getting in a shootout or having to need a firearm. My biggest fear is somebody breaking the window out of my car and stealing it or something like that, if it's not on my person, right? So no, I don't travel with a firearm. I'm not saying ever, but typically I haven't been. Typically. Well, all the travels that are on my channel, there's been no firearms present. No. At least not possessed by me. I don't.
Most people here, you're not allowed to travel with a handgun here unless you're going to the range. Like you've got you get caught with a handgun and you're out camping. You might have a license for it, but the thing is you're only allowed to use that at the range. But you can have a rifle. You can have a rifle in your vehicle here, but you'd have to have it a way to secure that correctly in a drawer system that's lockable and ammunition stored.
And I've researched that, and it may change in the future. The way the gun laws work in America federally, it's legal for me to carry a firearm on my person anywhere in the United States due to the fact that I'm a retired police officer.
Oh, okay.
I haven't tested that out, and I've heard rumors that it is different in different places. But a lot of our travel, we may dip into California, which your states have different laws for different things, right? So in California, the gun laws are much more restrictive. I don't need to experiment in that. And again, in the national parks, you're not allowed to be armed in a national park. So I just because of the type of travel we do. Well, and I haven't been in a situation, here's the thing, Buck, and women will get this too. Your first line of defense is your eyeballs and your brain, right? If you roll it up somewhere and it feels uncomfortable, and Carrie and I talked about this as well, the fact is that's your first line of defense, and women are much better at it than men, frankly. If I roll up and it seems sketchy somewhere, because like you guys travel in Australia like we do here in America, where my objective may be a day and a half or 2 days away where I want to go travel to, which is not uncommon, I think, in Australia either. If I'm pulling into a truck stop or a rest area somewhere on my way there, it may look or seem or whatever a little sketchy. And the thing I do is I just, instead of ignoring that inner voice in the back of your head that says, this just doesn't look right, I just take that as an omen and I freaking go and go somewhere else. And
you got to play it smart, mate.
Yeah. And I choose. Yeah.
You said something before, John, about I got sidetracked there.
Yeah.
And YouTube is a fantastic thing, but I think we're all guilty of it in a way, except for probably you. And exactly what you said. You and Dana go out and you got a nice vehicle, good reliable vehicle, in a very modest little trailer or little caravan. And it doesn't matter what you are in, mate. You still get to see the same beautiful spots that someone in a $500,000 bus camper, and you still get to see the same things, mate. And we have a lot of backpackers and that in little vans, little hired vans, and you see them up in Cairns. They just back up, pull a little butane stove out of the thing and cook some eggs up near the beach, and they just
Yeah.
do it really, really basic. And I thought, you know, good on you guys. You're
Mhm.
still seeing the same beautiful places that someone in a, you know, with the best caravan and the best big Dodge Ram and all that type of stuff. It's just,
Yeah.
it's getting there safely, seeing the beautiful places, and you've got a million of them over there to see, and getting
Mhm.
home safely. It doesn't matter what you do it in. And we're all getting caught up in this, got to keep up with the Joneses is the saying, mate. You've got to,
Yeah.
you know, you're not doing that, mate. You and Dana go out, you have as a good a time as anyone in that little
Mhm.
casita.
Well, in fact, our setup, I purposely, you know, we've done some modifications to the Forerunner, not huge, but I purposely wanted to, you know, like, and you guys have this too, because I've watched plenty of videos. I don't have Max Track stuck to the side of the car with a huge roof rack and all this stuff, because all that, you know, in my mind, all that does is draw attention to potential, you know, that's the people that are going to break your window out and steal the crap out of your car, right?
Yeah,
Is if you know, have all this stuff kind of stapled to the outside of the vehicle, where, you know, if you see our normal vehicle, it's just a pretty plain Jane from a distance. It's a pretty
yeah,
plain Jane Toyota. It has some mods that, given my level of experience, are very useful. You know, we have a winch, we have some off-road lights, we have the it's a higher model, so it came with a factory locker and crawl control and some of those things that frankly we don't use a ton, but it's just peace of mind for me. You know, I
yeah.
don't want to get in a situation, but I also don't want to announce what it is, you know, as I
Mm,
drive it around. It's
yeah.
just kind of under the radar. And so that's, yeah, I don't have a bunch of old man emu stickers and, you know, I'm sure you see this where you're at, where these guys have these decked out 4-wheel drives that have everything known to man kind of bolted to them, and they have all the signage and all that stuff. And it's not, you know, again, we're months on the road, and I just don't need that kind of attention.
No, no, that's it. You're a very modest man, mate. But where's it? Greggy Campbell said, I think he means here, when you pull up somewhere and you can hear the banjos going, get out of there.
Yes,
You'll
yeah,
probably yeah, in some sketchy place down in the south of the states, and you hear the banjos, get out of there.
it's
Yeah,
his words, not mine. Yeah.
similar to yeah, yeah, we can say that we're all the way down here. The Southerners, they can't reach us down here, but yeah, they'll probably get you.
But here's
So,
the thing: when you travel in these super rural areas, like, you know, if you're in Eastern Oregon or places in Idaho, and certainly in Utah, Nevada, the people who live there are kind of the nicest, most accommodating people. Like the banjo music thing doesn't play for me at all, just because, you know, pun unintended. Uh, those people will bend over backwards. In my famous cow video where I got run over by the cow, that that there was a guy that was obviously local. He was a rancher there. I mean, big cowboy hat, had the big diesel Ram pickup with a flatbed, towing an equipment trailer with with an excavator on the back. That guy went down the road past me down the highway, turned around and asked if he could help me.
wow,
You know,
yeah,
and that's been my experience in some of those
yeah.
kind of remote rural areas, is those people are, you know, as generous as the day is long. You know,
Yeah, I
they're
think
really there to.
same in Australia, mate. I think the further you get away
Yeah.
from the cities, the friendlier the people get, mate. And
Oh,
that's an old
absolutely.
saying here in Australia. You go out into the country towns and that, and people can't do enough to help you, which is the way it should be, isn't it? You know.
Yeah, 100%.
Hey, before
100%.
we come on, everyone will be interested in this.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
were talking about fuel prices before we came live, mate. Just to
Uh-huh.
give everyone I can't. I'm paying $1.80 for diesel at the moment, roughly
Okay.
about $1.80 a litre. Now there's 4 litres to a gallon.
Okay.
I think petrol or gas, as you call it, ULP down here, unleaded
Yeah.
petrol, is about the 160 mark, roughly. I don't
Hmm.
know. I don't use. Roz does. Roz would be able to tell me. So we'll go with $1.60 a litre for petrol,
Okay.
$1.80 for diesel at the moment, roughly here. What are you paying over there in Oregon, mate?
I think the corner gas station is 3.79 a gallon.
$3.79 a gallon for
Yeah.
petrol, which
Right.
is under a dollar a litre. I'll tell you what, mate, we give
well, that's not even compared to the as John Cadogan would say, the Schittsvillian micro pesos.
He's got away with words, that bloke. Sometimes I just think, he's a very knowledgeable guy. And
oh my gosh, yes.
But sometimes mate, just tell us what we want to hear and leave all the bullshit out, because half his clips are just all these witty words and all that, which is why people watch him. He's very witty. He's quite funny and that, but sometimes it's like, I feel like strangling you. Just tell us what we want to hear, mate. Stop dragging it out. Oh, dear.
Yeah, and quit trying to sell me flashlights.
Yeah. We'll talk about sponsorship in a minute, guys, because I want to let the cat out of the bag here in a minute. Marky Lavelle, well, there you go. Mark's down in New South Wales, mate. $1.98 for diesel. We were joking. As soon as you guys put those bloody Moab bombs or whatever they're called down the throats of the Iranians the other day, I just thought, what's the petrol Bowsers? That she's going to be any excuse to raise the price of petrol and diesel. Well, Mark just paid $1.98, nearly $2 a litre, mate. That's not a gallon, that's a litre.
So that's bullshit. 4 times. So that's $2. So what's it, $8 a gallon?
Holy dooly. I'm surprised you're still on your chair and you haven't fallen off it at those prices.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Mate, the Kiwis and the Poms, I think, pay even more than what we do. So, yeah, I can get around the $1.80 up here, Mark. About $1. Sometimes it's $1.82 a litre. Get 4 cents off for being in the RACQ roadside assist thing. So $1.78 a litre. I don't know. It's certainly not that dear here at the moment, Mark. So surprisingly enough, mate, some of the big cities sometimes are a lot dearer than here and some of the remoter places. I know you get right out west and get
for us, it's taxes.
Yeah.
You know, the municipalities, like if you go to Portland, you'll pay an extra 20 or 30 cents a gallon.
Yeah.
In places. Because I was we were grocery shopping a couple days ago, and it was over $4 a gallon in Portland.
Yeah, right.
You know, obviously compared to where I live, which is rural.
Yeah. Tax, and we get tax. They tax everything down here, and fuel's one of them, mate. And the last election, the guy who lost, he was going to do a 25 cent or something, 25 cent a litre subsidy for 12 months. Because of the cost of living. Are you experiencing the same thing there, mate? The cost of living down here is ridiculous. Everything is going up. Electricity. You go into the supermarkets now and you walk out shaking your head at the cost, how much everything is going up in cost at the supermarkets. Are you experiencing the same thing there?
Absolutely, 100%. You know, and obviously Oregon is a very liberal state, and liberal in the U.S. sense, not the Australian sense.
We're the other way around,
so we have very high taxes here. We don't have sales tax, but property taxes, fuel taxes, you know, you name it, they're piling on. So it's well, I was talking to you earlier, you know, where I'm paying, you know, what I say, $3.79 a gallon. If I went to Idaho or Utah, it's probably less than $3 a gallon right now. And then if I went to California right now, in some of the areas, I know from traveling last year, it was $6 and $7 pretty regularly in California, which is even worse than Oregon for that matter.
Yeah. Where do you like to go, mate? Do you like to, if you leave, I know Oregon's a pretty big state by itself, but what's the state further to your east? Idaho, is it, or Utah? No, Idaho.
Idaho primarily, yeah.
Yeah.
Now you're going to give me a geography lesson, and I'll flunk it. But we go down. So Idaho is about 8 hours from where I live. Yeah. If I just drive straight through. But Idaho is beautiful. It's very agricultural. You know, they have a lot of farms and that sort of thing in Idaho. The northern, what they call the panhandle of Idaho, is beautiful mountains. Coeur d'Alene is one of the cities up there. It's kind of borders Washington State in that respect. And then, of course, just beyond that is Montana, which of course is beautiful. And then we have Utah kind of to the southeast of that.
Wow. I don't know if I could
And
be up there in winter time, but yeah, like Montana and some of the countryside there, mate, is just spectacular, absolutely
mhm.
spectacular. And I think Mike Blakely's on. He's in Colorado, and I just did want to bring this up, guys. Mike's in there, another former US Marine, and
Yeah,
Mike's always on the live feed. And John,
yeah,
you two don't know each other from a bar of soap, but somehow met through my channel, and in the
yeah,
near future, possibly, I think Mike is
yeah.
coming up. Mike's coming to Oregon for something, and you may, hopefully, be meeting up with Mike.
That's correct. Yeah, no, Mike and I spoke on the phone. He's going to be up in October, and I'm still not sure. There's a really good chance as of today that we will be in the desert Southwest, probably Arizona in October.
Yeah.
I'm not sure because we have family in Southern California, which is what we did last year.
Well,
We may stay with family over the winter time, and so I'm unclear. Yes, if I'm in Oregon, absolutely, I'll take the road trip down to see Mike.
yeah,
I'm just unclear on kind of where we're going to be at. Uh,
yeah.
you know,
Oh, dude,
Mike had,
if it doesn't happen this time, you might be able
yeah.
to,
Well, and
enjoy
we
it up.
well, and we spoke. You know, when I'm down there in the Southwest, it's actually not that far for him to go as
Yeah,
well. So, and Southern Utah is one of our favorite places.
yeah,
Dana's absolute favorite place to travel to is St. George and Hurricane, Utah. Is
yeah,
very well. It's just gorgeous. Look up like Zion National Park, uh, the North Rim of the Grand Canyon's within a couple hours of there. It's just a very good spot to kind of camp out and adventure out from there. And
yeah,
then my personal favorite place for us in all of our travels has been Moab.
yeah.
I
Righto.
It's a little bit further north, but still in Utah.
Yes. Yeah, Moab's where they do all that extreme four-wheel driving, and I think
Yes.
Ronnie Dahl went over to Moab and was driving Jeeps up those, they
Hmm.
do some pretty extreme four-wheel
He
driving and
rolled,
that.
he rolled a side by side. It's an older video, but when he was in the U.S., I remember watching the video. He had rented us because you can rent vehicles there. He
Yes.
had rented what we call a side by side, like an ATV. You know those
Yeah,
little,
righto.
not a quad bike, but
Uh,
it's one where two people can ride in.
yeah.
And he was maybe doing something he shouldn't have been, and wound up rolling that vehicle. But but no, and that's a big, if you ever go to Moab, it's actually not cheap, but it's probably worth your time to check into a tour or, maybe a vehicle. They rent Jeeps, they rent a variety of different off-road kind of experiences there. And then if
Yeah.
you're into whitewater rafting or mountain biking or, you name the outdoor activity, they've got it, they've got it
Wow.
handled. They'll be able to accommodate you.
Mate, if you didn't live in Oregon, what other state do you think you'd like to live in? Or have you? Is there? I guess there's a lot of states you've never been to. I mean, you've got 50 of them, but
Mhm.
is there another place that would tickle your fancy? I know you probably got no intention of moving, but if you
No,
did,
I don't. I don't. We would go to Southern Utah or Moab potentially, but probably
righto,
Southern Utah. We
yeah,
like the area. It would be pretty easy to replicate what we have here, where a lot of people are moving to those areas, but they're typically moving into the cities, and we would probably once again buy a house kind of an hour, for an hour and a half within, and to us that's an easy drive to
yeah,
get groceries once a week or twice a month or something. Not that
yeah.
big a deal. But yeah, I won't, we're not ever moving. Well, likely we're never moving from where we're at. But secondly, we're probably not going to move somewhere into a city.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I know, but I couldn't live in a city again. Newt's from
no,
Scrunnel Funnels. He said
yeah,
Utah is awesome. So sounds
no,
like
he's
Newt's
he's
have been over
correct. Yeah, yeah, no, it's a gorgeous state, but Utah would be my number one. Possibly um, parts of Arizona. Some of the northern part of the state has more mountains and that sort of thing. Because I got to get my fix of living in mountains. I can't just move
there. Yeah.
out in the middle of the
Oh,
desert.
some of that,
And
some of the countryside that I see on your channel is spectacular, mate. And I always associate Oregon with snow-capped mountains and pine trees, and I guess Washington State and
Yeah.
Northern California is probably very similar as well, mate.
It is. Yeah. The 2/3 of Oregon, 2/3 of Washington State are high desert, and they're just beautiful. They're magnificent, and I so enjoy traveling throughout the Pacific Northwest, and that's kind of our plan this summer. Honestly, was last summer we just took off because it's my first year of retirement, and we just took off, and we're trying to do and see as many things as we possibly could, and maybe got a little out over our skis. But we got to see and do a lot of cool things. But this summer I kind of wanted it because Oregon, like the best time of the year is right now. There is, like, where I live, like my actual house is one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. It really is nice. But it's in the wintertime. Once you get into October, November, it starts raining, and then it doesn't stop till the springtime.
Well, I laughed the other day. It was coming on summer there, and you got back from your camping trip, and Dana's going, "It's snowing. Why is it snowing at this time of the year?" And that it looks absolutely magnificent. And that's why I love little channels like yours and that, mate. Like, there's a lot of us that will probably never ever get to the United States, but we can get to see it through your little channel, because your last one where you went out there and showed us, just you get to see what the United States looks like. We'll never get to go there, a lot of us, but we can see it through your eyes.
Well, and honestly, Buck, you gave me that advice a year ago, and I started making, most of my videos were at that time were kind of shop videos and some travel stuff, but not a ton. And I actually started shooting more video of the environment just based on what you were telling me, in that you were telling me that it part of the reason you watch the channel is just because you didn't plan on coming to the US, and it was going to be your only time to see it. And so for those folks, well, and frankly, if you look at the demographics on your channel like mine, it's probably a guys our age or a little bit older that maybe they're not as mobile, maybe they can't get out and do some of the same things. And so I kind of have an eye toward that as well.
It's keep doing it, mate. We love seeing all your part of the thing, and I guess that's why you watch some of the Australian stuff. You probably never get down here, but you get to see what Australia looks like. And
Buck, I have like 37 different plans in my mind of how I could possibly get to Australia and travel around, but none of them are a reality, because your country, it's so hard. It's hard to ship a vehicle down there, and then because you have to, and I'm unclear on how all the laws work with a vehicle. I think you need like a carnet passage or some kind of paperwork for and obviously the steering wheel's on the wrong side, so that would be an issue. But or do you I don't have the money to go to Australia and buy a Land Cruiser. I don't have $50,000 or $100,000 to buy a vehicle like that. But if I could get down there and spend $8,000 or $10,000 on some 25 or 30-year-old car like I have here, my Bronco, I'm pretty. I think I'm handy enough on the tools that I could probably do one of your backpacker setups and get around pretty well. I just have to convince Dana that it's well. And honestly, for all the grief that America gets about our immigration, oh my God, try being a tourist in Australia and trying to stay over 6 months. Good luck. They'll be hunting you down.
There's I won't go there. I won't get into politics. I was going to say something, but I won't. But
don't worry about it.
I won't go there. It'll cause a shitstorm. But mate, when I win the 100 million in the lotto, you and Dana will be down here on a big lap. I'll fix you up with a brand new Land Cruiser, and Slacken will be down with the whole family too. Mark will be down to do his lap of Australia in a decked out camper or something.
Well, I was looking at doing that and doing some like backpacker setup, because realistically, I could probably finagle some things and work that out, because my day-to-day expenses down there would not be horrendous, because your day-to-day expenses here, I have to eat no matter where I'm at. I have to have pay car insurance, do those things no matter where I'm at. So if I'm in Australia, I'm sure I could work that out. And again, I don't have any problem traveling, doing a lap of America in a 30-year-old car. That wouldn't be the issue.
Yeah.
The issue for me would be, I think you need more than 6 months. And
Yeah.
that's kind of where I haven't worked out exactly, because I've heard you can re-up the visa or whatever. And certainly I don't want to do anything that's going to be illegal while I'm visiting another country. That's just not me. So, but yeah, and Dana and I have chatted about it occasionally, and it's kind of a pipe dream at this point. But at some point,
who knows what might happen down the track, mate? You might down here and get.
Well, who knows? I've got a spare bedroom. I got a couple extra 4-wheel drives. You can, buy a plane ticket. We can hang out.
How's your little Jeep going? It looks like a little Willys World War II Willys Jeep, but it is a Jeep, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a 1979, so it's not a Willys. It's
no. It looks like that. If you didn't know your Jeep, you just look at it and go, "Oh, it's an old World War II Jeep." But
it looks like it's been through the war.
I love it. I love that thing. It's fantastic. You should get on and just start doing clips in that. Like go on a day trip, throw an esky in the back or a picnic hamper or something, and you and Dana go out. And is it registered to go on the road and that?
Shh, don't tell anybody, but no, it's not. So no, I drove it a week ago, 2 weeks ago, but it's a running, functioning vehicle. All I need to do is go pay the tags on it, basically. And I found out an interesting thing in my state that I was unaware of. So vehicle registration has been getting more and more expensive. And so it was going to be, I don't know, say $300 or $400 to change the registration and get it put back on the road. But there's a new special with what we call an SP plate in Oregon, which is a specialized vehicle plate. The vehicle has to be over 25 years old, and you can only drive it, I think, 5,000 miles a year or something.
Yeah.
But for an old car like that, I'm not going to drive it anymore. But I guess it's only about $100 or $200 to get that. And then it has permanent plates too. So I don't have to go back every 2 years and get new tags for it.
Yeah.
And so I likely will be doing that. But no, it's not registered. It runs and drives, run, drive, stops. It's a good, I'm not going to take like an hour-long drive in the thing. I've taken it here and there, 10 minutes, 20 minutes. It's good enough for that. It's not.
You can imagine that if you did get that little special registration thing or whatever for it, just throw a picture on, and as you said, you've got some beautiful places within throwing distance of where you live. Go out and do a little 1-day YouTube clips. Have take a little burner out, have a little picnic or a barbecue, have a little cook up somewhere with some beautiful mountain in the background or whatever. I reckon that little Jeep's got some character, mate. You could do some really good content with that.
Believe me, Buck, I've thought about it. It's well, I have what would you call it? So I have a tent cot. So I have a 2-person cot that has a small tent over the top of it. That Dana and I camped in years ago, and and it fits perfectly right in the back shelf. And I've thought about going, like for content ideas, taking that thing out and doing a little trip up in the woods and that sort of thing, a little camping trip. And it would be a lot of fun. I don't know if I could convince Dana to go with me, but my buddy who, in fact, my buddy I try to cut out of most of my videos because he's still working, and it may be negative for him to be on the videos. But anyway, he and I have taken a few trips like that, just guys trips.
That'd be good as long as you're not in that double cot together.
Correct. Yes. No, he has his own vehicle and his own sleeping situation.
I'm glad you clarified that one. But and I think people, when it comes
if we have the double cot and 2 sleeping bags, isn't that good enough?
Body warmth, when it gets cold over there in Oregon.
Yeah.
I think people would rather see that on YouTube now than people going out and all the big flash setup. People, I know most of the people here, seeing someone go out camping, doing it real simple, in a little 2-man tent or whatever, and have a little cook up and that. And you hit it on the head. We don't need all the big fancy stuff. And now that I've got that King's blow up swag, I bought that the other day. I'm going to start doing some little solo cans because I want to do Australian Army ration pack reviews and all that, rather than do them in my shed or in the backyard. throw the swag on the roof rack of the BT50 and just go for a
Absolutely.
little overnighter somewhere and do it while I'm out camping, start a little fire up, sit around the fire and just create content like that and get out of the backyard. So that's what
I think that
on my channel, mate. Lots of little overnighters.
Those ration pack reviews, how do those hit for your channel? Pretty good?
No, not really, mate. Not really. They don't do real good, mate, because my channel's not a lot of ex-military people in there. There's an American guy, Steve MRE 1989 or something like that. He's an American guy.
Yeah.
Best. Oh, gee whiz, mate. He does some, and his whole channel is on ration packs from around the world. Well, he gets his hand on old World War II ones, and he is very, very, very good. Steve MRE 1989. Utes will know the channel if he's still on. He's very good, mate. I love doing it. I love doing ration pack reviews.
See, it's funny how you make some content that hits, and it's stuff like I did a bunch of kind of projects and I think you and I spoke about this before. Some of the video content I've made wasn't really stuff I wanted to make. It was just stuff I was doing. And then everybody watched it. And then the stuff I want to do, I'll go make a travel video on. In fact, I've got a cruise video on my hard drive right now that Dana and I took a cruise last December. I never made a video about it because I don't think anybody will watch it because I've made other stuff and it just never, I'll make a home movie out of it or something, but I don't necessarily publish that. But like our Utah videos and some of our travel videos have not, gotten any views. Like I make them because I enjoy making them. So I don't really, I still make those videos because I like making them. Some of the mechanic videos or some of the DIY videos I make, just because it's something I enjoy the challenge of making the video, frankly. It doesn't really matter the content. And obviously in my channel or anybody watching that looks at my playlists of stuff, it's a bunch of crap that I was just doing for like there's no, like when you talk about using the Jeep as kind of a prop, that's not something I would likely do with that in mind. If I want to go camping in the Jeep, I'll go camping in the video and then make a video about it. But, I just make content, because I've talked to Carrie who's watching and a variety of other kind of YouTube people. And, I think that's a trap to try to make content that people are going to watch versus just make content about what you find interesting.
Just keep at it, mate. And, just keep doing it. Keep making clips and that. Show us interesting places. And then eventually you kind of work out. See, my channel's all over the place, mate. I do a bit of everything. And I think you find a lot of channels just focus on one subject. Whereas I try and focus on, I'm all over the place. And I guess a lot of people come on here and go, one thing's about camping, then he's doing a cook up, and then he's having a rant about politics. So I'm all over the shop, mate. So
yeah. And I think that somebody lived on US MREs in Somalia. Sorry about that, because they suck. But
well, we didn't mind it. It was like you blokes wanted to get our ration packs and we wanted to get your MREs. It was just something different in that. We had some Americans pop out of the bush one day. I was out on exercise and these Americans had come running out. Hey man, you got any MREs? And I said, yeah, you're talking to the right guy on the S4, which you'll know what an S4 is. Yes. Guy. I said, see that camouflage net about 100 meters. I said, meet me down there. And I had hundreds of Aussie ration packs. So so they all went to the Americans, and then I got all the MREs for my boys and little Gerber knives and all that. And I got onto their S4 and he sorted me out with a heap of they had a lot of good stuff, Leatherman or Gerbers or whatever. And
were they dude, I don't have one right here, but that's my favorite multi-tool is Gerber. Gerber's an Oregon company.
Oh, well,
and they were a knife maker, and then they obviously, and Leatherman is an Oregon company as well. So I've got a Leatherman I carry in my camera bag over here, but it's I love a good multi-tool. Leatherman and Gerber both. I like the Gerber a little bit better. I just can't find it currently. I can. I have a funny
story for you. I still remember his name. He was in. They were JCSE, Joint Communication Support Element. That was the name of your communication mob we
Mm-hmm.
were working with, JCSE. Their S4 was an Air Force guy, and his name was Scott Crane. I still remember his name. Anyway, he come over one day and he goes, "Who's your S4?" I said, "That'd be me, mate." He goes, and he wanted to start try. I said, "Come and see me at the end of the exercise and we'll talk turkey." Anyway, he come over and he had Gerbers and he gave me like 10 Gerbers and all this and all that. So I started handing the Gerbers out to my bosses, you know, the OC and the 2IC and all that. Fuck, where'd you get all this stuff from? I said, "Don't worry, don't even ask. Don't go there, boss." Anyway, we got back. We're doing a stock take and all these, we call them chairs millionaire. They were just a folding camp chair.
Okay.
Anyway, we're missing about half a dozen or 8 or whatever. And the boss has got to write them off, you know, like they're a cannibal item. He goes, "How could we be missing so many of these chairs millionaires?" I said, "You know that Gerber you got, boss?" He goes, "I don't want to know." We did the big exchange thing. So the Yanks went home with our chair because they went, "Oh man, those chairs millionaire, we want some." I said, "Righto, see those Gerbers you got there?" So we did a big swap and MRE.
Yeah, I can't remember what we had in the Marine. We didn't have chairs. Marine Corps doesn't have anything. We didn't have chairs. We didn't have chairs. We had little folding like office chairs in some of our comms vans. But you know, like you'd get at Office Depot, right? It was just like a civilian folding chair. There was no tactical, cool anything to it. And I can't remember when we were deployed. I never remember seeing a chair. Now that you mention it, it never occurred to me. We didn't have freaking chairs.
Oh, that's funny. Mick Watson saying my EDC is a Leatherman Wave, would be lost without it. So there you go.
Yeah,
so
that's a model. Old Mick's got a big checkbook because that Leatherman Wave is, I think, a couple $100.
Is that right? Wow.
They're pretty expensive.
Yeah.
It's no, I just carry a regular pocket knife. So I have a rule about pocket knives. It has to be cheap because I lose them and I break them because I use them for things they're not intended to. So I have this brand. What is this guy? That is a Ontario. That's what it's called. This is a Ontario knife company, and it is one of the original manufacturers. Oh gosh, you can see how dirty it is. Anyway, it is one of the original manufacturers of the K-bar.
Oh yes,
so, Marine Corps fighting knife. And so I saw that, and they're available on Amazon, and I think they're $35. And so when one of my kids needs a pocket knife or whatever, I just give them whatever I'm carrying, and then I just get on Amazon and hit the buy again button, and I get a new one.
Yeah, that's nice. We're allowed to have knives down here, but you got to be careful where you carry them. You've got to have you can have them around house, out camping, and all that.
Yeah.
But trouble is, people are starting to we get a lot of stabbings now, and in the cities, and there's no reason to be carrying a knife when you're going out to a pub or a nightclub or something like that. They're cracking right down on that now. But that's actually an offence here in Queensland, I guess in all of Australia. And it was without reasonable excuse, possess a knife in a public place. If a farmer comes into town to do his shopping and he's got his belt and his pocket knife, they wouldn't. You know what I mean?
Right.
There's a bit of common sense there, you know. But
we call them concealed weapons laws here.
Yes.
And so and I don't know what the specifics are, but the knife, it has to be under a certain amount. It can't be concealed. Like in some places, this clip on here where it's clipped into your pocket can be counted as a concealed weapon or not concealed, or I don't know all the fundamentals of it. But frankly, I don't go to places that I'm going to get. I don't go to places and I don't act in a manner that police are very likely to contact me.
No.
You know, that sort of thing. But that Leatherman Wave is a really nice. It's like kind of the top of the line Leatherman.
Yeah.
You know,
so
when he's talking
Gerber and Leatherman.
What's that?
Gerber and Leatherman are all from
Oregon. Yeah. Check this out. So this is I'm losing stuff. I think so. This is not a Wave. What he's talking about is much nicer than this one. So this is a kit I carry in my camera bag.
Yeah.
And it has a bunch of different tools and that sort of thing in it. And so this is this is like an old school basic Leatherman that everybody's probably familiar with.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is just the folding pliers basically. And I
Yes.
think there's a pocket knife or whatnot in there. But
Yeah.
but yeah, this has got screwdrivers and different bits and things like that also in this little pouch. And it's not, again, it's pretty, this is, you know, it's the size of my hand. So I'm not going to like wear it on my belt or anything like that, but it does live in my, I have a couple camera bags. And so that one goes in my kind of, my grip bag, if you will, of all my, you know, rolls of tape and extra batteries and stuff like that.
Yeah. No, they're certainly a handy item to have out, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, I need a Phillips head screwdriver. You know, you've just got it in your pocket when you're out camping, or a flat tip screwdriver. So they're a great little item to have. They really are.
Well, I carry a pretty good toolkit in my vehicle as well. So I've usually got that fairly close to hand. But no, it's cool that now, was that an Australian guy that had that Leatherman wave?
I don't know. Mick Watson, where are you Aussie, mate?
The truck sure looks like an Aussie.
Yes, I was just
in his profile.
Looks like he's 4-wheel drives an Aussie one. So
yeah.
Lynn Rogers saying we're not allowed to wear pocket knives, are we? Depends where you are, Lynn. You've just got to have a reasonable excuse. If you're going through Coles or Woolworths doing your shopping, you probably wouldn't have a pocket knife on your belt. You know what I mean? It's a bit of common sense. If you're going fishing, or you're going camping, or you're out in the garden working, or you're doing something, you've just got to have a reasonable excuse. And the cops are never going to pull you over and go, "Have you got a knife?" You know what I mean? It's just the only time you're going to get in trouble is if you're doing something stupid and you go threatening someone with it. A young teenage boy is allowed to get on his bike, have a big fishing knife and a fishing rod, and go down to the river and go and ride his bike through town and go fishing. He's got a reasonable excuse to have a knife on him. He's going fishing. It's just common sense stuff. It's when people start pulling them out and threatening other people, that's where you get into trouble. Yeah.
But anyway, let's talk about some travel stuff, because it's if you're not careful, I'll go down little rabbit holes, different places.
Yes, and we could talk about knives and gun. We could go on to guns and all that type of stuff. People, I know that someone out there will want to know, have you got grizzly bears in Oregon? And apparently you do not. You don't have grizzlies over that part of town, mate. I know everyone loves hearing about bears, so we'll get quickly onto that subject.
Oh, we have our neighborhood bear, but we don't have we have bears that live in my neighborhood, but they're not grizzlies.
No, mainly the black bear, are they?
Yeah.
You sent me a little video of you shooing one away. He was in your bin or something, wasn't he? You shoot him away.
Yeah.
And that's
we have more like the Yogi Bears. Any American audience will get the reference. They're after picnic baskets. So it's we have a bear-proof trash can. All our neighbors have bear-proof trash cans.
Yeah.
And because on trash night they'll come through the neighborhood, and anybody that doesn't have a trash bin with a screw top lid, they don't have thumbs. Bears don't have thumbs, so they can't unscrew a trash can. But you'll see the whole street. Before we all had those kind of trash cans, the whole street in the middle of the night would just be covered in trash because the bears would come through.
What do they eat, mate? Will they eat anything, or is there a certain food that they eat? Or?
They're scavengers. Most of the bears, like your polar bears and grizzlies are, kind of apex predators, right? They'll eat anything on 2 legs, or 4 legs. But they'll chase game down, that sort of thing. But most of your typical other bears, they're omnivorous, so they'll eat meat, but typically they're not like taking down deer and elk and things like that. They're at least to my knowledge, again, grain of salt, please forgive me. I'm not an expert on bear behavior, but it's my understanding they eat roots and berries and plants, and if they have the opportunity, like to find a dead animal or something like that, they'll eat that too.
Yeah. When you go camping over there in your neck of the woods, is there rattlesnakes and all that over in Oregon, or are they all found over in the Arizona?
No, I understand. I've never seen one here in Oregon. In fact, I don't think I've ever seen a wild rattlesnake, period. But anyway, they're in the desert primarily. So I would imagine in central and eastern Oregon, you might get rattlesnakes. I've never seen one. And certainly I live in a rainforest, so they're not here. I mean, we get like the little garter snakes, and that sort of thing, like Red Rider type, not venomous, not a big deal. We get those kind of snakes.
Yeah.
But yeah, typically I want to say Arizona is a big one for the snakes, and California, but they have scorpions out there. When I used to be in the desert a lot in Southern California, we worried about scorpions.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
do you have scorpions?
Yeah, we get them down here too.
Yeah.
Not a lot. Not a lot. The funnel web spiders ate them all, I think.
Oh, okay. But we get, we get brown recluse spiders, we get black widows, that sort of thing. But I don't think, and that's the only two spiders I can think of that are venomous, that are like going to kill you type situation. And there's a variety of snakes, but again, not a snake expert. I want to say most of your deadliest snakes in the U.S. are kind of in that southern portion, kind of southeast is where you get a lot of your really poisonous snakes. But again, I am certainly not an expert on those. No, the only dangerous things I have locally besides humans is bears potentially. I mean, you'd really have to, like, if you get eaten by a bear, you're an idiot, is kind of my take on the whole thing. However, we do have mountain lion here, and they'll kill you. They don't do it very often, but yes, we had a female hiker about 2 miles from my house that was, unfortunately, she was killed by a mountain lion here 3 or 4 years ago. Wow, but that is super, super rare. It's, I think there's maybe been 6 mountain lion deaths reported in the United States in like the last 50 or 100 years. And that's not a big deal. I've only ever seen one mountain lion. I was out turkey hunting 25 years ago and saw a mountain lion, and I'm here. It didn't eat me, so that was good. And once he saw us, I noticed him kind of following us. I turned around, and once we kind of made eye contact, it's a wild animal. He ran off. But these animals here in the, if you go to some of the national parks, you go to Yellowstone or certainly anywhere in Montana, and you're seeing bison and real grizzly bears. Yeah, you need to stay away from that stuff. Like, you don't think that they're dangerous, but there's any number of videos I love watching on Instagram where, some idiot, and you'd have to go to Yellowstone to understand how many people are there. But these tourists, I'm sure from foreign countries and wherever, are trying to get that selfie with their cell phone, kind of doing one of these jobbers with the thing behind them, and they just get taken off their feet. And so, no, my most dangerous animal is the cows in down in Hanksville, because they knocked me down a number of times. I was unprepared for that.
Mike said we got them all over the place here. Are you talking about rattlesnakes, Mike? In Colorado? Would he be talking about rattlers?
Could be bears and mountain lions too. He's living up in the Rockies.
Yeah, probably mountain lions he's talking about, not rattlesnakes. So it's we got snakes everywhere down here, and that's a real thing here. I keep banging on about snake safety, having a snake kit and all that type of stuff. Crocodiles, they'll eat you, but you just got to be careful. You stay away. You got to be, as you said, mate. You got to be smart. You got to be smart, mate. Put yourself into those situations where.
Let me ask you something, Buck, about the snake kit. Does it work? I mean, is it just a tourniquet, or is it like an anti-venom? All it is, mate, is a large, broad compression bandage. A couple of those. So if you get tagged by an Australian a lapid snake, the venom runs through the lymphatic system, not through your veins and all that. It travels through the lymphatic system. So by applying, say you get bitten on the arm, by applying a firm, broad bandage all up the whole limb, it slows the travel of the venom down through the lymphatic system. It buys you time, mate. It's not going to save you. It buys you time for help to get to you and for you to get to a hospital and get anti-venom. And one thing we are lucky, all the bad snakes down here, we got them all, but we've got anti-venom for them. So if you can slow it down, not move, get help, and bloody get to a hospital, you've got a good chance of survival. Mind you, some people get bitten out remote and they don't make it, mate. There's a little 9-year-old boy I saw on Facebook the other day. They found him dead, and he'd been
he'd been hit by an eastern brown, which is the second most venomous snake in the world, and just so happens to be the most common snake down here. They call it the common brown, and it's the second most venomous in the world. That's the one that most people die from down here. So if you get tagged by one of them, you don't get a compression bandage on, you're in deep shit, big time.
Yeah, that does not sound like anything I want to be a part of.
Yeah, no, it's good. Yeah, we don't have bears here. Leading bears are scary. They're a bloody. I've seen videos of people coming out in their backyard, and there'll be mama bear and 3 babies playing in the pool because it's hot. And whatever. Just
well, see, that's a scenario where, you don't want that because if they have cubs, they're going to be aggressive.
Yes,
and so so you don't want to run into a bear with cubs. But no, and most of the again, I keep my distance, yell at them, and they usually run away.
Yeah, I saw that on your video. You'd say there, pressure immobilization method, PIM. Yeah, pressure by that compression bandage or 2 big compression bandages and immobilize. Don't move. If you start walking and all that type of stuff, it's going to
it's just going to. Oh yeah.
Here we go. Mike's giving us an update from Colorado. Everyone, we've got rattlesnakes, cougars, brown bears, black bears, and grizzlies. Just depends on where you go. So Mike's got the ham, cheese, and tomato there. He's got a bit of everything.
Yeah. So, no, I believe him. He's in the Rockies. A lot of Colorado's the Rocky Mountains. And so, I buy that. Absolutely.
Yeah. So brown bears and so grizzlies are different to brown bears. Grizzlies are another.
They're another species. No, he's
they're
correct.
Like a brown bear on steroids or something, are they? The grizzlies?
They're much larger. I think the only larger bear than a grizzly is a polar bear.
I'll tell you what, there's a bear, so it's called the Kodiak bear. It's the biggest bear in the world, and it's part of the brown bear. It's bigger than a grizzly. They call it a Kodiak bear. It might be a grizzly.
I think it might be a grizzly. Again, I'm not a bear expert, but I think a Kodiak bear is a grizzly.
Well, I reckon the most aggressive are the polars.
That's what I've heard.
Slacken's not that Slacken has polar bears, but up in Canada and that, they reckon if you come across a polar bear and you're isolated, you're in deep shit with those things too. So.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Because you're not going to outrun a bear. A bear runs like 30 miles an hour.
Yeah, no, that's right.
Yeah, if they decide they want to eat you, you're toast.
Mate of mine went over on holidays to the States, and he was in Yellowstone National Park. And I remember he said, "Holy shit!" He said, "We saw a grizzly bear running." He said, "They are quick." He said, "They are lightning fast." He said, "There's no way you would outrun a bear. You got to play dead, I guess." Or
it's that'll run faster than your friend.
Humphrey Bear. Humphrey Bear was a bear back in the old days on a kid show. We had Humphrey Bear. I don't know, he was a black bear of some sort, but he was in a big costume and that.
Oh,
yeah. Now, I was in the army with a bloke I nearly had his name there, and he played Humphrey Bear. Before he joined the army, he was the guy in the Humphrey Bear outfit. Mick Carden, his name was. He was in Signals Corps with me. And he said, I've been in Humphrey Bear's thing on TV. So Mick Carden, his name was. There you go, Humphrey Bear. Yeah, it was a kid show and all that. They have a mascot.
Oh, yeah.
Thing like that. Hey, we're talking about cameras before. And I noticed one of your clips the other day, bloody having trouble focusing in that. Now, you use a pretty fancy camera with a automatic adjusting lens and that. I know Pete from WA Camping he's having the same problem where just seem to be in that zone where it doesn't quite know where to focus in on you. And I just
not to get too far in the weeds, but what Pete's using is I think he's got a 1 or 2 because he's talked about his cameras before, and I want to say he's using a Sony maybe A6500 or because he has a pretty consistent hunt in the focus on his camera. He's using expensive cameras. They're Sonys. They're not cheap, but I think they're 1 or 2 generations old. What I have, so the focus hunting you saw on mine was my mistake. What I did is mine has really, really good autofocus for face stuff. And so when I'm pointing the camera at things that with no human faces in it, it can hunt around a little bit, but that's my ineptitude. It's not the camera's fault. But yeah, if you see like my talking head stuff where I'm set, I have my GoPro set up right here. If I was to use my big camera, it would be pretty cool. Well, maybe I'll do it next time. But anyway, it would have me in perfect focus, and kind of everything else would be a little bit out of focus.
Yeah, right.
And it really has some cool effects. But yeah, we were talking about my general disgust and overall just hatred of anything GoPro. Having said that, the one that you're looking at me on seems to be doing pretty good. But
it's doing well. You've obviously got it plugged into a power source, or it'd be flat by now.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, no, it's an old GoPro. About four GoPro generations, I swore them off because every time I wanted to use it, the battery would be dead or the audio wouldn't come out right. And then every time I wanted an accessory to like plug a microphone in, you had to buy some other GoPro bit. No, what I have for that now is this, which is kind of like cheating. In fact, this would work good for you. This is the camera. I think it was the newest thing out at the time, but it's a DJI Action 4. And that was, I think they have the Action, Carrie's got one now, and it's an Action 5, I believe. And then Carrie has a lot more money than I do, so she just went out and bought this, where it was a big investment for me. And then she also has that little DJI that has it's very odd. It has a hand grip, and you turn the screen sideways, and it has the little gimbal camera thing on it. She has one of those as well. What's that?
I think, it keeps it stable, the gimbal. I think Steve Fuller's got a DJI of some sort. He's gone over to DJI because, when GoPros are working, they're good. But as you said, we were talking before we come on camera, there are so many overheat, glitches, won't charge properly.
Yeah.
It freezes up. You've got to pull the battery out to unfreeze it. And when you put the battery back in, you've got to reset the time and the date. And
then if you have the media mod attached to it, you can't just pull the battery out. You have to disassemble the media mod to get the that device there. And and so I'm done with that. Honestly, the DJI Action that I have now does as well as my GoPro did with the media mod on it for audio. Like the audio is that good. The other cool thing, and this is my invention, is obviously this is just the base that clips on the camera. Common GoPro stuff. This is good for you, Buck. This is a rare earth magnet instead of a suction cup. And then I put a 1/4-20 screw in there. And so I can mount this camera to anything metal. So imagine you want to do a driving scene and you want to, like a lot of the shots in my videos, and you don't see a ton of it. I'll only put up a couple seconds here and there, but all those, the side of the vehicle, you just put the camera like that and it will clip to the side of the vehicle. But rather than a suction cup, because I don't trust suction cups, it will, you can clip it over the tire to get the tire going down the road, something like that. I can just put it on the hood, the bonnet, or the roof, and all that stuff. Because again, I'm too cheap to go out and buy a drone, and I'm fairly retarded when it comes to operating stuff. So the drone probably wouldn't work. I would spend all this money on a drone and just crash it. So I haven't invested in that. But this is just a little rare earth magnet. It's like a 2-inch diameter. And then is
that on Amazon? You get a lot of your stuff on Amazon over there, John.
I do. I went to Harbor Freight. It's just like a tool store, and it's a Chinese thing. It's not high quality. But then I just put some cloth tape on the bottom so it doesn't scratch the car. And then just a 1/4-20 screw through the middle of it because you're probably familiar. All your cameras have a 1/4-20. Like any camera mount you've ever had is a 1/4-20 bolt. So you can just go to the hardware store and buy those. And so when I was doing a lot of filming in the Bronco, I actually put some metal plates on the dash just with 2-sided tape. And so I could just clip this onto the dash. Now with the 4Runner, it's Dana's car, so I'm not just like double-siding tape crap to it. So I will, however, just stick this on the dash. And this base holds it pretty well, and the stabilization built into the new cameras is really good. And I know you were talking, you have a really cool camera. It's a little bit older, but that Sony action camera, those things are very underrated, I think.
Yeah, that does a good job.
Does Sony still make that?
Well, that's a good. I don't know. I do
I,
not know. I don't.
yeah,
I don't think they do, mate. I think
they
you'd
were
be
such a
hard to
great,
get one now.
yeah, they were such a great camera. And no, if you watched anybody that's watching, if you watched off-road content from like 10 years ago, there's a good chance that it was a Sony action camera, like really high end,
Yeah,
good video content, because it was kind of
yeah,
one of the better setups that you could get at the time outside of GoPro. DJI hadn't really hit the world at that point.
yeah.
But yeah,
They're
the other,
they're taking over. GoPro, mate. They had their and we talked about it before we came on. GoPro had their
yeah,
chance to
oh yeah,
have the best product.
hmm
They've been overtaken by DJI. How many times do you see that now? The Chinese companies, they just
hmm
get something and they make it better. And
well, they
you can
do
see a lot of different
to
gear.
give GoPro some credit. GoPro was building their cameras in China. What do you think happens when you produce something in China?
Yeah,
You get DJI is what you get is
yeah.
you get a better product, only it doesn't have your name on it.
They
Is
probably build and go, hey, we can improve that. We can improve that. And
Oh,
yeah,
100%,
exactly. It's
100%.
it's
But
like
no, I'll
building.
show you my other camera because since we were talking about it,
Yeah,
this
this is a
one,
good one.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, here we go.
So let me take this jinky little tripod off here. But this one is just a Lumix um, G, G9 Mark II. And so I started out with the channel, my little G7's over there in the background under that lamp.
Yeah,
But this one has autofocus that is as good as anything Sony builds. Only
yeah,
this is a micro four thirds camera, so I already have a bunch of lenses for it. It doesn't have the full frame sensor like the advantage Pete's camera has. Is I think he's either shooting a APS-C or full frame sensor versus this is a micro four thirds. But since Pete, you, and me all do 90% of our shooting outside, the size of the sensor effectively doesn't matter because I don't shoot at night primarily. I guess
yeah,
Pete
yeah,
does once in a while. I
yeah,
watched a boat video that he made recently where he was kind of dusk evening,
yeah,
because
yeah,
the sensor size, it matters if you're shooting in low light. And I go to bed early.
yeah,
7 o'clock at night is like midnight for me. So that's not my game. But yeah, I just have a simple little 12 to 60 zoom lens on here. And so yeah, most of if you watch my content, this is what it's shot on. And then you mentioned it before, Buck, but this is I have a windsock on here, but it's just a Rode, made in Australia, Rode.
yeah. That road's Australian.
Shot,
That's right. Yeah,
shotgun mic. And that
yeah,
was, but so if you're watching one of my shots and I'm in the distance or I'm with another person, have a conversation, likely I change the microphone. It's this microphone's good to about 6 or 7 feet.
yeah,
Anything beyond that and I don't do the YouTube thing where the guy clips the microphone on like the outside of their shirt.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, I usually have that same microphone, but I put it inside my shirt so you can't tell.
Mm.
It's
A lot of people are going to those clip-on microphone. I know Steve and another one. Back on to Rowan. Talking about do Jeeps have a bad reliability reputation in the States like they do here in Australia? I can't confirm if that's the case, but there is a bit of a joke down here in Australia. Like if you buy a Jeep, be prepared to be recovered type thing. Is Jeeps known to, do you have that problem there?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, 100%. Especially the new Jeeps. I'm not a modern Jeep guy. I've owned several Jeeps, but they were older, and so they kind of were legendary. And you guys, I'm talking to an Australian audience, so the fact that you guys are in love with the inline six motors and like everything back in the day, that was the old Jeeps. From about mid 1970s up through the early 2000s. Any Jeep product had some version of a 4-liter inline six. And you guys have you have our Cherokees down there, like a Jeep Cherokee in Australia that has a 4-liter high output inline six. Yeah, it's good forever, like hundreds of thousands of miles. That is a workhorse of a motor.
Yes.
But the more modern stuff from your Jeep Wranglers, primarily from probably 2007, I think is the first year of the new Wrangler, the JK Wrangler. Yeah, they're basically kind of hyped up minivan motors, and
Yeah.
they have a variety of kind of issues, known issues. I'm not an expert on them.
Yeah.
I like them. In fact, my daughter Kira just sold her 2020 2-liter turbo JK or JL, excuse me, the latest version.
Yeah.
But she did break down a couple times. She had to have it towed into the car dealership. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna,
Okay.
and where I have a Toyota 4Runner and it has yet to be towed anywhere. So
Yeah. Toyota, I know
it's a
you. They've
it's
just got
a
a great reputation, the
mhm,
Toyotas, haven't they, really? I guess that's
they
why down
do.
here you pay more for a Toyota.
hmm We call it the Toyota tax.
Yeah. Yeah. Paying an extra 10 grand for the badge
But
on the
yeah,
front.
yeah. But no, I don't. I would own a Jeep, but again, I'm not afraid of stuff. Oh, somebody there have two now, JKU and a JLU. So he has a JK Unlimited, which is probably anywhere from I think '07 up to 2018 or 19,
Yeah.
and then a JL is the latest one, which is a very similar vehicle. Like you wouldn't, if you don't know what you're looking at, it's the same car, and ironically, they're the same power plant, but um, they're good vehicles. Here's the thing: they may be unreliable, or how much of that's maintenance? I'm sure you get the same thing down there as
Yeah.
people
You
not
got to look.
taking care of their gear.
Yeah.
The other thing I would say is a stock Jeep is the most capable vehicle, bar none. Stock versus stock vehicle, right? Not
Yes. Yeah.
no modifications. My stock, because so our trailer or our tow vehicle, we've talked about is a 2022 4Runner. Uh, what is it called? TRD off road. So
Yeah.
if you're in the American 4-wheel drive world, the TRD off road is one level below the TRD Pro. So it's got most of the cool off road features. But compared to a Jeep Rubicon, there is no comparison. If you really want to go off and rock crawl and do crazy
Oh,
stuff, the Jeep is 100% a better vehicle. It's narrower.
yeah.
It has front and rear lockers. It's just a more
Yeah.
dedicated off-road vehicle. But if you're going to
Absolutely.
drive, now here's the reason I own a 4Runner. First of all, the reliability. The other thing is I don't do rock crawling. I'm not
No.
out doing extreme stuff. So I would prefer to have a good ride. Uh, the driving experience in the 4Runner is, here's Mike Blakely. The older
Yeah.
Jeeps are pretty much bulletproof. Yeah. But the fact is the Toyota 4Runner works really well for us
Yeah.
in that it's
Oh,
just,
no. Yeah.
you can drive 8 or
Comfortable.
10 hours in it and it's comfortable.
Yeah.
It's,
No, exactly right. Your
and
old
again,
Jeep's got the old 6-cylinder straight six?
yes. Yeah. Mine has an earlier version. So it's a 258 or a 4.2 liter, but it's
Oh,
the
yeah,
same
yeah.
motor mechanically. Mine's carbed, it has a carburetor. It's not fuel injected.
Yeah.
Obviously the newer Jeeps have carburetors or excuse me, fuel injection.
Yeah, not
Um,
Barbies, yeah.
but yeah, it's a 4-speed, uh, just it was even for then, it was the base model. It was a 4-speed, 6-cylinder Jeep.
Yeah. I'm tipping IFS. You got they be IFS at the front, your 4Runner?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a solid rear axle,
Yeah.
coil spring at the rear, not leaf spring, but yes, it's an
Oh, okay.
IFS.
Coil at the
It's
back. Okay.
yeah, yeah. It's
Hey, electric.
no, I had that's why I had to put airbags in it. That was one of the
Right.
mods I had to do because they're very soft in the back to try to tow a
Yeah.
trailer.
Yeah, all the coil strings. Speaking of
Mhm.
your casita, what are the weights of your casita, mate? Have you had it on the scales at all? Is it a light little thing or?
Is it yeah, I guess relative to its size. Yeah, it's under 3,500 pounds. It's about 3,000 loaded up.
Yeah, righto.
And
Divide
mine's
that
just
by 2.2. So yeah, okay, yeah.
yeah, it's well within, so the tow rating on the 4Runner is 5,000 pounds. The max vehicle weight on the trailer is 3,500. Again, I scaled it at about 3,000. So there's a considerable amount of cushion because I don't want to be right up on that
Yeah,
max payload of the vehicle by any
yeah,
means. And so no, it's small enough that it's a single axle, 3,500 pound Dexter Torflex axle.
yeah,
So it has a
righto.
torsion axle, and it drives fine. It's real. I'm going to be replacing the axle because of really age here shortly. They say, I talked to somebody at the local axle place, and I've been in contact with Dexter, and they have a 10-year warranty, and then they have a kind of a sell by date of 25 years, and mine's 26 years old. So I'm gonna,
right.
just to avoid problems, I'm gonna replace the axle.
Yeah, fair enough. I was watching something the other day, and they were taking a four-wheel drive 24/7. It's called, and they were taking the Shark 6, the 3 EV utes or pickups out to the Simpson Desert. Those things are so heavy; they have got no. By the time they've got a GVM, but they're so heavy from the start, they've got no payload because of the weight of the electric batteries in there.
Yeah.
And when they put the tow ball weight of a caravan, so they're out of the water. They're so heavy from the start. They have absolutely no payload because of the weight of the batteries in them, those EVs. So you can see a lot of EVs getting around the States, mate, those cyber trucks and all that type of stuff. Or
you saw it with the cyber trucks. Well, first of all, they're hard to miss. They're massive, and they're they don't look like anything else. Initially, yeah, they were. I think they started off relatively popular. I'm not in the $100,000 to $120,000 car club, so I was never going to buy one. But they're now they can't get rid of them. They just they can't sell them. But getting back to that video, I didn't watch that video. It popped up in my feed, but frankly, I wasn't that interested. The thing that worries me about having an electric off-road vehicle is the weight. For where you're at, much of your country is sand. And what's your enemy in sand? It is weight. And same where I'm at, I deal with a lot of environments where sand and mud and then also snow become an issue. And you don't want a super heavy. The way I go or the things I do very specifically, you do not want a heavy vehicle, because if you're trying to four-wheel in the snow, and I'm being very broad about this because there's different kinds of snow. Like, first of all, I'm going to throw a little shade at your buddy Tim Bates. If you're watching a video to learn how to drive in the snow and you're watching Tim Bates, just turn it off now. Find some YouTube guy that's teaching how to drive in the snow where you're at. So again, if you live in Minnesota or the state of Maine or somewhere in Canada, I'm not going to go out and say, hey, this is how to drive in the snow, because that's very specific to where I live and based on my experience. Because snow is like sand, right? There's different varieties, and depending on how cold it is, how much moisture is in the air, there's a lot of different things. But anyway, getting back to the snow in my area, if I'm going off-road in the snow, I'm trying to float the vehicle. I don't want it to sink down because the snow is so deep. It may be, a meter deep, right? And so I don't have 3-meter tall tires. I have to have, I have to be able to get traction and then air my tires down like you would on soft sand.
Yes.
To try to float over the top of that. And for the snow we have around here, I like as light a vehicle as I possibly can. And now, having said that, my primary off-road vehicle for those is a full-size Bronco, which seems counterintuitive, but it's as light as my 4Runner, because it's older. Older cars are lighter than newer cars for whatever reason.
Yeah.
But I typically run for. I've had really good luck. What's he got?
He said, what's a Ram 1500 sell for in the US? And Mike Blakely answered him. It's about 40,000 US. It's a lot cheaper than here in Australia.
Oh yeah. But again, they have to ship them down there. In fact, can you even buy a Ram in Australia that doesn't go through a third party? Because my understanding was a lot of the vehicles, American vehicles there, have to go to some kind of import company who then modifies them to come up to your laws.
Well, they've got to be converted to right-hand drive for a start.
Right. Yeah.
So, I don't know if there's actually. Is there actually Ram places here, or is it just I don't know? I've never really looked into buying one. I know they're well over $100,000, but Brad Howell, if Brad Howell was on, he'd be able to say.
The problem I don't know any of those full size American rigs. I probably wouldn't get down where you're at. I just because here's the thing: they're very complicated. I mean, they have some features that are awesome. the entertainment stuff, the air cool, or the air conditioned heated seats. Like they've got all this tech in them that's awesome, right up until one thing goes wrong, and then then you're screwed. You have to take it to a dealership. And and if there's no Ram dealerships or Chrysler dealerships in Australia, you're really out of luck, man. And so
they're getting more popular down here, but I think that's why a lot of people love going with Toyota, because you can be out in a decent sized country town in the middle of nowhere in Australia, and there'll be a Toyota dealership there.
Yeah,
it's just a lot more support in that for Toyota.
Yeah,
we're getting a vehicle here next year, mate, called the Ford Ranger Super Duty, which is going up to 4,500 GVM kilos, not pounds, and it's gonna. I think that's gonna make a dent in the Rams and the Chevys and that people are getting for the big caravans. I think that Ranger Super Duty, I think it's gonna. I don't know. We talked about it on the last live feed. Not sure if the engine's big enough for a bigger vehicle like that, but anyway, I think it's going to mix it with the American vehicles that are down here. But you see Rams everywhere now, mate, and Chevys.
Really?
Rams, mate. Yeah, they're getting popular down here because people are. We talked about it before. People are going bigger and better, towing bigger, heavier caravans, and
is there anything left of manufacturing in Australia? Like Holden, are they still around or?
No, I've heard that when the Ranger Super Duty comes in, something of that's going to be made here in Australia, down in Adelaide. We used to build good muscle cars and everything down here in Australia.
We've got
nothing now, mate. It's all closed down. We've shot ourselves in the foot. We used to build Holden, which is Chevy and Ford. We used to build some good cars down here. Gone. Don't even build. Our last tyre factory closed down in 2010. So all our tyres are imported. All our vehicles are imported. 90% of our fuel's imported. We've really gone. We've just gone too far, mate, and we're going to come unstuck.
You know what might be a good vehicle on the Australian market, just because I know they have good market penetration. But what about Kia? Don't they have a pickup down there now?
Yeah.
Or
the Kia Tasman pickup has just come out, but it's got a little 2.2 turbo diesel engine. I haven't seen a lot on that vehicle. It looks ugly. People are turned off by the look of it for a start. It's an ugly looking ute.
I think we have those too, and yet you're right. It's not a very attractive vehicle.
No, it's not.
I think Kia makes pretty good products. I think the Koreans are making pretty decent products. I'd be interested to see if it's an all-wheel drive setup, or if it's like an Amarok type deal, or if it's got a traditional transfer case and low range and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Mike, if you're going to tow vehicle, get a 2500 or bigger, or the 3500. The 1500 are glorified grocery getters. Not worth it for towing. Well, I hope Brad Howell sees that message, because Brad bought a Ram 1500, beautiful vehicle, and he's towing his own RV caravan with it.
Talking about where we live, if you live, especially on the West Coast, where Mike and I'm allowing Mike to claim the West Coast, but he lives in a bunch of big mountains, and if you're going to tow, your typical American RV is, I don't know what it would be in meters, but like a 25-foot, 30-foot caravan would be a common trailer to be towed, much more common than my size trailer. And so these 3/4 and 1 ton trucks, basically you guys have the Land Cruiser 79. For us, that's a half-ton truck. That's not a work truck. And Mike's not wrong. Like if you're a rancher or a farmer or somebody that makes like a tradie, I think you'd call them, you would not even think about buying a half-ton truck. You would automatically get an F-250, F-350, Ram 25 or 3500. It would not even enter your mind to get a half-ton pickup. But it comes down to like fuel economy. Your country's had to be fuel conscious much longer than the U.S. has, and it's because again, I don't think a Land Cruiser 79, which is a legend, but I don't think anybody jumps in those thinking, oh, this is the most luxury ride I can get. They're a tool.
Far from it, mate.
Yeah. And so you're again, if you're in America, first of all, our roads don't suck, so you don't have to worry about driving across half the country on freaking dirt roads, right? We have, like, when we go to, when Dana and I take off for Utah, it's about a 15 or 16-hour drive to go to the places we like to go, maybe a little longer. Anyway, it's a 2-day drive, but I'm on a highway. It's not, if I take like an out of the way, cool, picturesque way down there, it's still on a goddamn highway. It's not dirt roads.
You should see our Bruce Highway that goes from Brisbane to Cairns. It's a disgrace, mate. If you come over here, you would just shake your head and go, "You Aussies, we can't even build roads properly here. We are hopeless. We are absolutely useless." Dead set.
I don't understand how you don't have paved highways. How does that happen?
Don't know. Well, you get there when you get south of Queensland, you hit the Pacific Highway in New South Wales. You go, "Oh my God, this is beautiful." And then as you come north, you hit the Bruce Highway and you think, Queenslanders. The Tasman was taken up Beeraclock Hill recently and made it. Wow. We have this, there's a hill here. I don't know where it is. It's called Beeraclock Hill. And they take all the four-wheel drives and it's a pretty gnarly hill and there's a lot of rocks and that at the top. So,
okay.
And they reckon that I haven't seen that one yet, Gary. I'll have to check that. They reckon the Kia Tasman was taken up the hill. Before the Kia Tasman was launched here, mate, we had a sneak peek of what it might look like. And I think it was something that from America, it came out in America, and it was a tough, really good looking ute, as we call it. I thought, my God, have a look at that. That's going to leave the Ford Rangers. And then when everyone went, that's not it. That's not what you were supposed to be bringing out. And it's just, it looks, apparently inside, the tech and that's very good on it. Like,
that's always again, that's always the thing about like concept vehicles and that sort of thing. But I mean, like, if you look around, going back to my buying an older car, I think your rig's 10, 12 years old now. And is yours a Mitsubishi or is it your vehicle?
Mazda, mate. Mine's a Mazda.
Oh, it's a Mazda. But again, people sleep on brands like that. I've owned Isuzu vehicles and I owned several Mazdas. And I'm trying to think and I've owned like I said, a ton of Isuzus growing up and as an adult. And some of those brands that don't say Toyota on them, people just sleep on. Oh, and Mitsubishi as well.
Yeah.
They have some pretty amazing vehicles. If I was going to come down on a budget to Australia, one of the vehicles I would probably look for is an old gasoline powered, what was the Mitsubishi? I think you called them a Pajero.
Pajero.
Yeah, we called them a Montero. So people will talk trash about them because some of these YouTube guys will take them out, and drive across the middle of the outback and blow the thing up or whatever, doing this really intense off-road stuff. But if I'm going to, me and my wife are just going to throw a bed in the back of the thing and take the ring road kind of around do the lap of Australia, we'll be on some gravel and some off, technical off-road stuff, but we're not going to be out bashing it through the rocks. So it would be
no. Yeah. Mark Lavelle. Yeah. I thought it meant Pajero in Spanish. Marky Lavelle reckons it means wanker. I thought it was wanker is one of them ones.
Yeah.
Puffer is a homosexual down here. So I always thought it meant puff.
I have Spanish. No idea, but they're again, we call them Monteros, not Pajeros.
Yeah.
But at their core, they're a solid, Land Cruisers type vehicle. I'm not putting them exactly at the same station, but it's that same sort of thing. Or a Nissan Patrol is the same sort of vehicle. I could buy a 30-year-old Patrol, especially if I bought a gas one, because nobody wants those. And
I'll tell you what, they had some get up and go, but you got to tow a petrol bowser behind you to fill them up.
Yeah. But if I'm not trying to go through the middle of the outback where, fuel stations are 1,000 Ks apart, it'd be fine. And again, it's not going to be my commuter car to go to work. I'm just going to drive the thing around the country and frickin' sell it. It would be my intention. Or maybe just leave it parked in the airport parking lot. I don't know. With the keys and the title clipped to the thing and call it a day.
Hey, here's another question for you.
Yeah.
In relation to licenses, on a normal car license here in Australia, we can go up to 4,500. So the new Ranger Super Duty will be right on the. If you go over 4.5 ton, you've got to go up to a light rigid license code. So if you want to drive a Ram 3500 here in Australia, you've got to have an LR, a light rigid license. You can't do that on a normal car license. And also, when you go to light rigid, I think your alcohol limit goes to 0 then, because it's classed as a truck, and truck drivers have to be 0 out. We got a 0.05 limit here for random breath tests and that. So do you, for your big Chevys and your big Rams, do you need another license code, or can you drive those on a normal car license?
No, you can drive them on a normal car license. That's the simplest answer I can give. If for some reason, although those vehicles are capable of being classified as commercial. So if I was doing business and I had a payload GVWR, something like that, of 26,000 pounds or more. So basically, if I had maybe a 1-ton dually, two wheels in the back or 4 wheels in the back type thing, a dually pickup, like a 1-ton towing a medium-sized excavator, got over that 26-pound limit, and it's a commercial operation, then yes, I would need to have what we call a CDL. So our guys that drive big trucks, like what do you call them? Truck trains or whatever the hell they are, the big semi trucks.
Road trains. Yeah, that'd be
But yeah, that would be for us. That's a class A CDL, or commercial driver's license.
Okay,
I've heard some states, I think Texas is one of them, that they are changing the laws, because the irony of that is if I'm a tradesman and I have my 1-ton dually pickup, I have the big equipment trailer with my excavator on the back, I'm over 26,000 pounds, I'm towing it for a commercial purpose, I have to have a CDL, right? I have to have that commercial driver's license. Yeah. If I'm an 80-year-old idiot from the suburbs that has a 40-foot motorhome on the back of my truck that's equally as heavy, you can just have a driver's license. It's the craziest thing ever.
Same down here, mate. You can tow a massive caravan on a car license here with no experience. You don't have to do a course. You don't have to have a separate license. And we've had a big, and that's up there with the potato scallop thing. I put up a thing. Should you have to do a course and have a separate license to tow a caravan over a certain, not your casita or whatever, but one of the big ones, and you get over a certain weight limit, and that caused a shit fight too. A lot of people said yes, and there was other people that said no, and that was but you're right. Here in Queensland, you can get your learner's license, even on a learner or a provisional license, go and hook up a dirty big caravan and tow it with no experience at all on a learner license or a provisional license. It's absolutely.
I was meaning to ask you, because you post some pictures on your Facebook of people getting stick shift driver's licenses or something like that, or manual licenses. Does that mean what I think it means, where basically you have a differentiation between driving a vehicle with an automatic transmission versus a manual transmission?
Yes, exactly, mate. Here in Queensland, I don't know what the codes are interstate, and I'm going to let a cat out of bag in a minute, guys, in relation to, I'm glad you brought that up. It's just, if you go for your driver, say a young 17-year-old kid, and they go for their test in an automatic car, they will get a driver's license and it'll have CA on there. So normal car license will be C. They'll have CA, which means car license automatic only. But if you get if you go and do your test as a young kid in a manual car, you can drive a manual or an auto. But if you only do your test in an auto, you're only allowed to drive automatic vehicles, and you'll get a CA license. And when I was a cop, mate, if I pulled a young lad over, I go, mate, you got your license on you? Yeah. And they'd give me their license, have CA on it. And I'd look around, they'd be driving an auto. I go, that's a ticket, mate. You're getting a ticket. And they go, what for? I said, driving with a girl's license. And then they realised I was taking the piss out of them. But I used to have a crack, and that's where I was going. I used to volunteer until the other day, guys. I've quit the PCYC because I used to teach kids how to drive, mate. There was a little auto car. It was a little Kia. And then the manual car was a Hyundai, or the other way around. Anyway, the other day, they said, we're getting a new car. So what turns up? Another little Kia, an auto. So instead of replacing the auto, they've taken the manual away, and now they're only teaching the kids how to drive automatic cars. And I was filthy, because I used to love teaching I talked them into, the young boys especially, get up and get your manual license. A lot of jobs, mechanic and all that, you've got to have a manual license to get that job. So anyway, they're only teaching them auto now. So I said to the PCYC the other day, I said, if I can't teach kids how to drive a manual anymore, I'm not interested in doing this. So I've quit that program, everyone. So there you go. You heard it right now, because I just don't want to drive around teaching kids, especially young boys, how to drive an auto. It just goes against my grain. I want to teach them how to drive.
Why do you think the Australian law is set up like that still? Because like here in America, you have to basically special order a vehicle to get a manual transmission.
Well, it's getting like that here too, mate. In our day, everything was an auto was a rarity. They were around, but an auto car back in the early 80s, when I learned to drive, was rare. They were around. Most cars were manual. Now it's the other way around, mate. You're lucky to see them. The new cars.
I want to say the switch for us was probably in the 70s and 80s. Manuals really were on the decline. Of course, I grew up in a rural area where most of us drove trucks, and that wasn't the case. It was all manual, or many of them were manual. I grew up on all manual transmission cars, but or in my case, trucks. But no, I was just curious because again, here, obviously our cars are both automatics. I haven't had a manual car in 5 or I guess I have one now. The Jeep's manual, but but yeah, for a daily driver. The Bronco I had before this one was super rare, and one of the things that was rare was it had a 5-speed. And that was no 5-speed manual transmission. That's what made it rare, though. It's most Broncos, especially in the 1990s, they were almost all automatics. Yeah, and it's too bad because it was
watching TV. I remember back in the early game watching TV, and I remember going, a lot of the Yanks are using autos. So here in Australia back then, just about 90% of stuff was manual. But I still remember going, the Yanks, a lot of their stuff's automatic. So yous went automatic a lot sooner before what we did. But autos are coming in now, and I think manual cars are becoming, especially new ones, are becoming a thing of the past. And I think that's why now they've gone, we're not going to teach manual anymore. And I thought, you know what? Just driving around with kids in an auto, you can teach a monkey how to drive an automatic. So I just didn't want to be part of that. I used to get
I haven't understood why they. I like a manual transmission until I get stuck in traffic.
If you're around big cities and that, I guess auto's the way to go. But I know a bit old fashioned, mate. I still like the old manuals and everything. And it used to be cheaper to buy a manual. If you bought a new car, the manuals were always a couple of $1,000 cheaper than what an auto was. But a lot of the stuff coming out, you're going to get it in auto. I know the Ford Rangers, they're auto only, 10-speed gearbox. So if you want to go,
it's funny because like the new Broncos that way. Here in the U.S. they just reintroduced the Bronco, and the Ford Bronco. And interestingly, you could only get a manual with the 4-cylinder turbo. You couldn't get it with the V6 twin turbo. You have to upgrade to the automatic. And I didn't like that at all. Not that I need a ton of horsepower, but it still would have been fun to have a manual transmission behind the big twin turbo V6 would have been a lot of fun. But and now I quit working, so I can't afford toys like that.
No, exactly. Hey, speaking of vehicles, mate, Mike might be able to mention here. See all these Canadian tariffs and all this stuff that was going on. Have you seen the price of vehicles? You probably haven't been because you're not in the market for a new car, but have new car prices gone up in the United States because of all these tariffs?
I'd have to defer to Mike. I have no idea. I don't know. Because so much of it's bullshit, right? It's they say there's going to be a tariff, then it's not going to be a tariff, then there is going to be a tariff. And it was, I can't keep up, because literally it's day to day, hour to hour on whatever drama is going to jump off. So it's not worth my time. Just tell me what the end result is here in 6 months, and then I'll worry about it.
Exactly. That's a good attitude to have, John, I think. Mark Lavelle said, if I grew up in the country, and if we didn't have a manual license as a bloke, you would be given many uppercuts.
Just tell anybody.
I used to do that all the time. If I pulled a young fella up and he presented a CA auto license, just my sense of I go, mate, that's a ticket. And they, well, what did I do wrong? Driving with a girl's license, mate. And then they clicked that you were taking the piss out of them. So
funny. So one of my friends pulled over back in the day, pulled over a guy in a Camaro in the middle of the night. I don't know if you ever had Camaros there. Little Chevy 2-door hot rod sports car. Yeah. And anyway, he pulls him over and doesn't give him a ticket. He lets him go. And so I see him back at the police department later. And this friend of mine was a little bit gullible sometimes. And I looked at him just deadpan, straight face. And I was like, well, did you give him a ticket? He's like, no, I didn't. I said, what about felony operation of a Camaro after the posted hours? And he's like, what? Because you see a guy cruising around in some jalopy at midnight. It's like, hey man,
he's up to no good.
Yeah. And so, but that was always the running, because for a while, Camaros weren't they're a popular car, but they're kind of a little dicey on the ownership.
Yeah. Hey, how did you go, mate? As a cop, did you get, when you got out and pulled someone over and you're walking up to their vehicle, were you always on edge as a cop in America? If you don't know, guys, John's an ex police officer, same as me. Were you always on edge walking up to a car, mate?
I was. I tried to not for myself, but for the person getting pulled over. Everybody that's ever done traffic stops walks up to the window or walks up to the passenger side window, whatever the scheme is, and the person you pull over is freaked out 100%. Me as a police officer would get pulled over occasionally, and because I may or may not have been speeding. And so but they would pull me over, and I'd be like, why in the heck am I so nervous? I know exactly what's going to happen. The guy's going to walk up, he's going to recognize me, and he's going to say, hey, good day, and off I'll go, right? But so what I tried to do, especially later in my career, is I tried to make it as casual as possible. And of course, Buck, you probably can back me up on this. Everybody has a spiel, a canned spiel, right? You walk up to the window and you say, what I said was, hey, my name's Officer Behan with the Oregon City Police. The reason I've pulled you over is whatever it is, and may I see your license, registration, and insurance? And that was in some form or fashion. That was almost, as you can see, I'm very practiced at saying that. Yeah. But I would notice their hand shaking and things like that. And I would usually take a beat. I'd say, hey, just look at me for a minute. Nothing bad's going to happen. Just can I see the documents that I asked for, or something like that? Because I'd be like, hey, I understand this is especially, because your normal traffic stop isn't some TV thing. It's some soccer mom on the way to pick up her kids, right? Yeah. It's not this higher risk. There were times when it's the middle of the night. I pull over a car that shouldn't be in the neighborhood it's in, and I walk up to the door, and this has actually happened where, I walk up to the window, and this guy purposely pulls into a parking lot, which is typically kind of a bad guy move to do. I have a suspended license, I don't want to get towed type move. And so this guy pulls into a parking lot, kind of red flag number one. And I don't know how your dispatch worked there when you were on patrol, but our dispatch was pretty busy. And so on this occasion, I happened to, it was one of these super fast kind of traffic stops where I needed to pull the car over immediately. And I pulled him over. And as I'm walking up to the driver's window, I called out the plate. I 4-Paul-2-4 out with on a traffic stop, license plate, location, that sort of thing. I'm sure he did some version of that, right? And then I walk up to the window. Well, the way our dispatch worked is if it was a stolen vehicle or it had been involved in a crime, they would tone it out. You would get tones in my case, I had an earpiece, one of those deals that goes in your ear so the public can't hear my radio. and I hear this, and I've had this guy in conversation now for about 30 seconds, right? Hey, my name's Officer Behan, this whole thing. Can I see you? And he is just shaking like a leaf, this guy. And he's got a big backpack in the passenger seat of the car, and just a super sketchy guy, right? And I I get the tones, and normally on a felony traffic stop, we would pull somebody over in a felony stop like that, ideally, and then wait for backup. And you wouldn't be where I was at the time, right? But just because of circumstances. And so he's getting something out of his backpack, and he's shaking like a leaf. And I hear the tones, so I know this is super bad. And I'm like, hey man, put your hands in the steering wheel. And he keeps going through the stuff in the backpack. And I pulled my gun out and stuck it in his ear. And basically, I get on the radio, and I'm like, yeah, 4 Paul 24. I copy the tones. And then the next thing they hear out of it, because I forgot to unkey the mic, I'm like, put your hands in the fucking steering wheel. And which he did. And all the guys, I got so much shit for that at work, because I'd gone out and broadcast profanity over the radio, which is a pretty big deal. But then the rest of my boys showed up, and we took him into custody for driving a stolen car. But it was fairly humorous at the time. But
we do a rego check or a name check on someone, and as soon as they come back and go, "Is your radio secure?" and you think, "Oh, here we go, he's wanted on a warrant or something,"
Yeah.
Want him to hear it that you're about to take him in on a warrant or whatever. So
yeah. Ours was we use codes. Of course, the bad guys know all the codes, right? So before earpieces, if the dispatcher said, you have 1035, that means like a warrant or something, and that'd be the last you saw of that guy. All it'd be his elbows and sneakers headed the other way.
Yeah, with all the shit we used to have to carry, you ain't catching him.
No, and I was never a fast runner anyway.
Rowan's going. Another question: the police system over there. You guys seem to have so many forms of police, And we talked about this on our first ever. We went right into the police side of things. We have state police here and federal police in Queensland. Just have state police. We don't have the counties and the sheriffs and all that type of stuff.
Right. Yeah.
Like you do there, and each city might have their own police force or whatever. We just
that was my background. Is I work for a municipality, so I work for a city police department.
Yeah, and you have state troopers. That's one of was that the name of that funny movie, State Troopers or something? Shit, that was
Super Troopers.
Super Troopers. That is one of the funniest movies I've ever seen.
When they do the traffic stop and they're talking about words they're going to use, and then the other one I love is they're in there getting lunch, and the guy's like, "Can I have a liter of soda, please?" And the guy behind the counter is like, "Yeah, I'll get a whatever for a cop."
Like piss in it or something, spit on his burger, and a special police order. Your idea.
A side of DNA.
Yeah. How long you doing the police, mate? You did quite a stint.
24 years.
Yeah, it's a good stint, mate. Enjoying retirement now.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah.
It's good to get up and not have to worry about going to work. And your biggest thing now is, I guess, where's my next camping trip or whatever. It's a good feeling, isn't it, where you and Dana get up, start planning for your next trip.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And and you can probably identify with this to an extent. Now it's important to me to be home during some of the holidays and things, because my kids for 2 decades, it was always, we're going to have Christmas, this afternoon when dad wakes up from the night shift, or, we're going to have Thanksgiving super early before dad goes to work, or we'll have Thanksgiving or Christmas on a different day because you're working all those holidays and things. And so it is important for me, obviously my kids are adults now, but I still want to, be there for them and things. And so,
exactly.
Some of those family things, it's nice not to have to be worried about going to work.
Yeah. Rowan's asking you,
copper or a screw?
A copper or a screw? A screw, I don't know if you use that. a screw is a slang term for a prison officer. I think that comes from the old British prison system, mate. A screw. I don't even know where that term came from. Turn the screw or turn the key to the cells, or
I think it might have had to do with the way the locks worked.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure, but everyone knows a screw is a correctional officer, right? I hate it when they call them guard. A guard. We're not guards. We're correctional officers. It's a different thing. So,
here in America, I didn't know for years, but it's very offensive to correctional officers to call them jailers, because I would call them jailers all the time.
Yeah,
but
right.
Well, and obviously copper has to do with the badge.
Yeah, well, the cop, or I've heard the other one, which is another British thing. It's cop was constable on patrol. That's another thing I've heard. I don't know if that's true or not.
That sounds true too. But I'd always heard it because their badges were made of copper.
Well, that could be another one too.
Either way, the constable on patrol actually makes more sense, I guess.
Yeah, there was an old joke about back in the old day, coppers used to do beat patrols. So you're always on foot doing the beat. Was you always on doing foot patrols? And there was a joke about coppers having flat feet from doing beat patrol. So I'm at basic training. I'm 2 days into basic training in the army, and we had to get up on this table, and they were seeing if we had flat feet or not. Yeah. And they go, Rogers, I'll leave the swearing out, but he goes, Rogers, you've got bloody flat feet. You're old man a copper. And he was. I said, yes, Corporal, he is. Get down, you smart ass, he goes.
No, it was funny. I would take the young kids out on Friday and Saturday nights when I was at work, and we would do foot patrols.
Yeah.
Because we had a kind of a it's Main Street in Oregon City, has a bunch of bars and restaurants, and some of them would get a little bit rowdy. But if you got out of your car and you got 3 or 4 guys together, guys and gals, whatever, and I would just go and I would do bar checks, and I would walk Main Street, because you would be amazed at how much people calm down. If they, it's not the same thing as just seeing a police car occasionally drive around, but for whatever reason, the people that were at those bars and things, I think it really had an effect to see, hey, the police are like in the bar. And that sort of thing. And, once we got it worked out with some of the doormen and things, where oh, why are you coming here? Or you can't come in here. And I was like, well, I can either shut you down, or, you can let me come in, because that's how this is going to go.
All the bouncers, obviously, they used to love seeing us turn up, mate, because it said, people go, shit, the cops are in here, and they calm down on that. And that was a big part of us Thursday, Friday, Saturday night on our patrol log. Walk through the Crown Hotel, foot patrol through here. We'd go up into the nightclub, and they'd see the blue shirts and go, shit, and people would look, and you do. It's just human instinct. You see the coppers and rappers. Roz just got home, and so rappers just heard a car come into the thing. So that's on to Rowan's thing. It's a hard question, Rowan. I hated I don't know what the police were, mate. I couldn't stand the paperwork. I got out after 6 years of the police. The paperwork was horrendous, especially with traffic accidents and domestic violence, and it's only getting worse. I went to the prison system. It was a lot more structured, and there was a lot less paperwork. I don't know. Being a copper was a more exciting job. I had a lot more area moments as a police officer.
Oh, yeah.
A lot more unknown. You're going into the unknown as a police officer, whereas in a prison, it can be dangerous in there too. Don't get me wrong, but it's more structured. And there's more structure, whereas as a cop, you go to a domestic, you're always walking into the unknown, mate. You don't know if they got a gun. You don't know if they got a knife. You don't know, you just didn't know. So, mate, I'd have to say, I don't know, the cop was a more exciting job, maybe. Screw could be, there's an old saying with being a prison screw, mate, 95% boredom, 5% sheer terror. Because when it kicked off in a prison, it kicked off real quick. And it could go from 0 to 100 like that. And
that's like police work too. That I would agree with the paperwork thing. That's the part they never show in the police shows, the television shows. One really cool thing happens, and you spend the next 2 days typing things up.
The paperwork got to me so much that I almost unclipped my Glock one day, and I was going to shoot the computer. And I resigned the next day. The paperwork got to me, mate. I could handle the grubs and all that out on the street and dealing with It was the paperwork, and that's why I left the police. I just couldn't handle the paperwork. I just hated it. But when you're talking about, I used to love getting the gear on, go down the main street on a foot patrol, saying good day to everyone, be seen, drive around, walk through the pubs on a Friday night, Saturday night. And I'd love being a cop and actually being able to do my job, but we got hamstrung by paperwork, and that I did not like that part.
The paperwork was definitely a downside, but I mean, the other upsides were, I mean, I got to do so many cool things in my career that I have no regrets. You know, some of the investigative things I got to do, some of the things I just did on basic patrol. You know, that again, you know, if you were to watch police work on a television, it would turn into, you know, the public thinks that detectives get to do the coolest stuff. That they don't get to do any of that stuff. They sit behind a desk all day and shuffle papers, and once in a while they'll interview a child molester or something else. And granted, they need to do that, and those people need to go to prison forever. But being out on the street, you know, you're involved in robberies and, you know, high-speed pursuits and other things. You know, in fact, it's kind of funny. Since I set up the studio, this is my second to last police car. When they rotated it out of the fleet, they gave me the number plate because it was pretty infamous. It had been through a couple rammings and some other stuff. It was a fun little ride. But
did you get to pull a pit maneuver off in a high speed chase at all?
Not in that one. I don't think I ever did an actual pit maneuver. No, I rammed two different vehicles in that car. One of them was a stolen vehicle. It turned into a shootout and stuff. But anyway, my part of it was this guy went down. He was in a subdivision in a stolen vehicle. In fact, it was a 4Runner, ironically. He goes down to the end, not realizing the street dead ended. Like it just ended. It was one of these subdivisions that they hadn't built the additional whatevers on the end of it. And so the street ended. And so it wasn't even like a cul-de-sac where it's got a big loop or something. It was just the street ended, and it's just a little suburban street. And so this guy's like doing a 37-point turn to turn around and go back the other way. And I hit him kind of in the rear driver's side door of the car and tried to pin that up in the front yard of this house. And then it's a 4Runner, so it's a bigger vehicle. And he managed to pivot out of that and then go down, and he hit one of my partners head on. And then they wound up shooting at his vehicle, and then he crashed about a block later. He tried to run down one of my partners, this kid that he'd been on his own out of the police academy, out of the field training program for about 5 days. And this guy hits him head on in a Dodge Charger. And then when he got out of the car, the guy tried to run him over. At which point they started shooting at him. And that was pretty horrific day. And then the next one I did in that car was we got in a vehicle pursuit, and it was an old guy and like an F-150 full-size pickup. And it was a low speed, and and there's like a dozen cop cars behind him. And he went to make a U-turn in the middle of this highway. And I was like, oh, well, and he was going really, really slow. And so he comes around, and I'm like the third car in the stack. And so I just got out of line and took him just head on, right at bumper to bumper, and low speed just stopped him. And then fortunately, the number 2 guy was a young kid we had working for us that, it's the police, so they're all young. He swung around the other way and actually put his Charger in the backside of this guy's pickup. So we had him pinned in because he tried to reverse away from me. Unfortunately, my car didn't sustain any damage at all, but it bent up the license plate. The Charger that was behind the truck had about $5,000 or $6,000 damage to that car. But he wasn't able to drive, so we got him out of the truck. And it's a much longer story than that. But no, that was pretty funny because another guy that was in the pursuit with me, his wife was riding with him, on a ride along. And she gets out and she looks at the front of my car and she's like, "Oh man, you bent your license plate on your vehicle." And I was like, "No, that was the last guy I rammed with this car."
Dear idea.
But
a live feed one night and just talk about cop stories.
Yeah. Yeah. We can get back to the camping. Do you have any of the have you been putting up any of the images?
No.
Oh, okay.
I didn't. If I'm going to do this, I have to create what do they call it? A slideshow. So I didn't create a slideshow. So I haven't put any photos up, mate. But
well, then I can lie and I can just tell people what epic pictures I sent you of Utah and Hobenweep and all the places we went.
Next time we do it, we'll do another one, and if you send me a heap of your best photos of beautiful places, I can make a slideshow up out of them. I didn't do it for this one, mate. This is more of a
as far as anybody knows watching, I sent a bunch of epic pictures to Buck. He just failed.
when did you send them?
What are you talking about? No, I'm not messing around, man. I sent a bunch of pictures to you on Facebook Messenger. Not on the Buckaroonie Messenger, but on the on your personal one. Yeah. If you look at Messenger, I sent you a bunch of pictures.
Couple of days.
A week ago.
Oh, okay. No, well, I failed in my duties there. I did not do a slideshow, so I failed drastically there. It would have been good to bring up some photos to.
Now that caravan you have is pretty similar in size to what I've got, right?
Well, mine's a 17.5 foot, but that's just the living area. That's not the tow bar and everything.
Okay, that's mine. I think is the tow bar included in the 17 foot.
Yeah, mine definitely looks bigger than the Casita. So I think when they say the Jayco is a 17.5 foot, that's just the box, not the
because I think my box is like 14 or 15 feet at the end of the day.
Yeah, so yours looks more 14, 15.
No, your Jayco, do you need tow mirrors or anything for that, or is it? Yeah.
With my last one, it was only as wide as the BT50, and just so that you're aware, that Mazda BT50 is basically a Ford Ranger. With a Mazda badge. It's the same vehicle as the Ford Ranger because Mazda and Ford were in bed with each other there for about years or whatever. So it's basically a Ford Ranger.
We had the same thing here with the Mazda pickups. We're all Ford Rangers.
Yeah, they get in. My old caravan, mate, the Jawa Sirocco, I did not need tow mirrors. It was only as wide as but the Jayco, I just had to go and pay $1,000 to get some clear view towing mirrors so I can see down the side, because without them, and it's a requirement here, mate, if you're towing a caravan, by law you have to have towing mirrors here in Queensland. So I was running the gauntlet a couple of times. I had those little screw-on ones, and I just didn't trust them, so I just took the plunge. I went and I got Morris Grasso here to throw some clear view on for me. So they're on there now, so I'm all legal, mate. But because it was a lot narrower. Do you need them on the Casita at all?
That's what I was going to say, is on the Casita specifically, because I haven't had the other models. No, it's like your Jawa was. It's narrow enough that the regular mirrors in the vehicle work just fine for it. There's some of the other brands that make fiber, Bigfoot, what is it, Explorer, Escape is another manufacturer. They make slightly larger ones that I think I would have to do the tow mirrors.
Yeah. Marky Lavell's up me. He's going on, Buck, the 6 Ps. I don't know if you have that in America. Prior preparation prevents a piss poor performance.
Yes. No, I'm a firm believer in that.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's another good one too. Your lack of planning or something, lack of planning on your behalf doesn't constitute an emergency on my behalf. That was another good saying as well, and very, very true.
Yeah. Well, when we travel, you've done you've done a lot of videos on content about preparedness, when you're camping and doing things like that. And I've shot a few things. I haven't really got into, and I may do it in the future, about, like, what do I carry in my tow vehicle, in the event of a breakdown, or, something as simple as changing a tire, be it on the trailer or the vehicle itself, or, toolkits and, spare parts and things like that you may or may not carry.
Doing those clips too, John, can help other people out, mate. And even if
that's what I'm talking about,
one person out, it's worth it. It's worth it. Let's face it, we all go to YouTube now. to get ideas, to learn how do I do this and all that type of stuff. So, you know, your clips, mate, might help someone else out down the track. So they're certainly worth doing, I think.
Yeah, you know, some of the things I carry in my car that many people probably don't carry is like a jack. You know, back in the day, you probably remember high lift jacks.
Yes.
I haven't carried one in years because they're super dangerous, and they I think I still have one or two of them, but I use them as they're intended for like farm type stuff. If I'm moving a log or I'm doing a variety of things, not on vehicles. But what I do carry is I found this lightweight floor jack that's only about that big, and it fits kind of in the cargo compartment of the 4Runner.
Yeah.
And compared to trying to jack a, you know, if you've ever tried to change a tire on the roadside with you know, the jack they provide from the factory, you know, that's a little dicey, you know. And so I do carry a floor jack with the collapsible, you know, the handle comes down into multiple pieces, but it just makes stuff like that so much, you know, or you need to jack up your trailer for some reason, that sort of thing. Because I have, you know, when we were in Utah, I had to service one of the bearings I thought was getting hot, you know, and it just made it so much easier to be able to get out that jack versus trying to do something with maybe a hydraulic bottle jack or a like the factory screw jack that you have in your car.
Yeah, we call them a scissor jack. You know, the other day I was thinking, I've never jacked my car up with a scissor jack. I've always had it in there. I've always used the big trolley jack in the shed. And I thought, you know, I've had a 2-inch lift, bigger tires and that. I'm thinking, I reckon by the time my scissor jack gets to its full extent, the tire may not be off the ground. And I thought, I'm lucky I haven't been caught short with that. So I went to Super Cheap Auto the other day and I actually bought a bottle jack, mate, so I can put it under the axle. And I probably should have done that years ago. But only the other day I thought, I don't know if my scissor jack will even get this thing
reach
because I've got the lift with me.
I don't think you're alone, Buck. That's, you know, I certainly could have gotten caught out. Although my vehicle has stock size tires, but I still don't want to trust. Well, and some of those bottle jacks and some of the scissor type jacks are, again, they're just not very stable.
No.
And so compared to I think you're calling a trolley jack what I call a floor jack.
Yeah. It's got the little wheels on it and
And so I carry a trolley jack in my car.
Yeah, I'm limited for room for that. I'd like to get a little. They are certainly the way to go. I've got the larger one for the shed.
I was going to say I've got the one in my shed that's like that big. You know, I mean, it's big, heavy. You're not going to put that in your car. But I found a smaller one that I could put in there.
I know a lot of people do run those. I'm not, but with my bottle jack that I've got now, I've certainly got a piece of thick plywood that I use as a base plate, so it is a lot more stable if I'm ever on
that'll help
or senior ground or whatever. So anyway, well, we've been going nearly 2 hours 50 nearly. So everyone,
I burned your whole day
mowing me lawn.
Yeah, it's actually getting to be dusk here, dusk-ish.
All right, yeah. Well, Dana's probably got dinner ready, and she's probably down there going, "Where is he? His dinner's going cold on him."
So, oh no, she told me already. I'm on my own.
Baked beans on toast, mate. Baked beans on toast. That's always a good thing. So anyway, mate, I'll be going. Roz is home, so I'll go out, say good day, and have a cup of tea with her. And mate, great Jibber today. Really, thanks for coming on. And maybe do another one if anyone wants to. We could do a dedicated, the shorter one, and you can tell us some cop story. I got some good cop stories. I think you'll trump me on them, but I got a couple of good ones that I can tell everyone. If anyone wants to hear some good cop stories from John, let us know. Give a thumbs up there, and we can come on again.
We could do some YouTube stories, or we could do more camping stuff too. You know,
whatever
breakdowns, long distance travel, that sort of thing.
Yeah, where's your next big trip to, mate?
We were just discussing it today. I think we're going to be headed. Well, we're headed to the coast in July. We're going to spend a couple weeks down at the coast. There's a rally down there for fiberglass trailers that we're going to go to, and I'll probably film some content on that. Carrie's going to be down there as well. But we've got a couple spots we're going to hit on the coast before the rally, and then we may hit Central Oregon, I'm thinking, and maybe Eastern Oregon after that. And so we're kind of open right now. We later this toward the fall, we're definitely going to be getting back into the kind of desert Southwest.
Yeah.
I just we haven't determined. That's where the problem for me with meeting up with Mike is going to be, is October is kind of prime shoulder season for us to be on the road.
Yeah.
If I'm honest, you know, because the weather up here is just starting to turn.
Yeah. Nice, mate. So there's John's channel again, guys. 143-JKRD. So get on. And what's your friend's channel again? Mike put it up there before.
It's a Careful Life. So ITS, capital KARI, capital LIFE.
It's a Careful Life. So I think I've subscribed to that one already. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, you did a while back. But no, she's got some really interesting perspectives. Obviously, you know, all of us, especially you and I and her, all are using some of the same equipment, but we're using it kind of in different ways. So that's a little bit interesting. You know, she typically does the you know, more of the vlogger type handheld camera, a lot of narrative interaction with the, you know, so you really know what's going on when she shoots a video. It's you know, there's some really good content there. And you know, for any, not that you have a ton of female subscribers, but you know, she has a female perspective, which is kind of different too. And then also her, you know, she talks about her trailer and what they're doing with the trailer and some of that stuff. So no, she has some well, and they go some really cool places. Her and John. Her husband's name is John as well. What's that?
You got some amazing places to go to over there. You really have, I mean, we have here too, but geez, it's a long way to get anywhere. I'm a long way away from everywhere. I was thinking the other day for the Legends for Charity camp next year down to Victoria. You know, it's over a 6,000 kilometre round trip to go to a 3-day camping event. And me and Roz have been thinking, I just don't know if we can justify the expense.
Well, I mean, it's kilometers, so that's like 400 miles one way, right?
Well, 6,000. What's 6,000 kilometres? 6,000 kilometres. What's that? It's over 4,000 miles, 4,500 miles, maybe.
I'm just taking a piss. I don't know. I never do. Yeah, I don't do Celsius. I don't do freaking Ks. I don't do any of that.
The rest of the world, mate. Dead set.
Yeah, no, I don't need that.
5/30 of an inch, and it's like, what is that in mil? Like metric. The metric system is so much bloody easier than the imperial system and
easy, man.
Fahrenheit. So
I don't make up the rules. You live in the communist country that's got the metric system, not me.
We went. I think it was 19. I still remember the ads on TV. I think it was 1976. We went from miles to. So when I learnt to drive in an old XY Falcon, we were still in miles. And I remember the ads on TV teaching everyone that a 60 with a big thing was actually 35 mile an hour. And we're all trying to convert. You know, it was hard. It was hard converting. But now we're so used to it. But
6,000 Ks, how many, like you did half a lap, right? And how many Ks do you think you drove?
Oh, well, there's a lot of driving around. We did over 10,000 or something on that, I think, mate. It was... Yeah, I can't remember how there, but just down to Victoria and back's 3,500 Ks or something, you know? No, over 6,500 kilometres. So,
well, so here's what we do when like, let's say you have that 3-day event, 6,000 Ks away. You leave a month early and you go a couple hundred kilometers. You find something cool to do.
Yeah,
you know, scope out some content similar to what you started out doing in on your half a lap. You know, because I don't think you guys were laying down those kind of Ks in one segment. You know,
we had a couple of big days to start with because we'd already seen North Queensland, but we're going to do the same thing when we go to the camping with mates in September. We're not going to drive the new car. It's a long way down there. So we're just going to a couple hundred Ks, do an overnighter, a two-nighter, and a two-nighter here, work our way down, do the event there, have a look around the Newcastle area, and then we'll come back a different way and do the same thing. No more than a couple hundred Ks a day type thing, mate, you know? And
what about, why don't you just freaking fly down to that whatever camp out thing and maybe, can you hotel it or something down there? You know, like 6,000 Ks. How hard is it for you to get to an airport?
Well, you got Melbourne. You got to fly. We'd have to fly into Melbourne and then hire a camper or something and then drive out. That would be an option, mate. I'm not writing it off yet, but to drive there, I can't justify it. Maybe flying down, have a weekend in Melbourne, do all the restaurant-y type stuff and the Melbourne-y stuff, and then hire a little camper and go out to the event. That could be an option, mate. That could well be an option. It'd probably work out cheaper to do that than actually driving down and back with the cost.
That's what I'm thinking, if it's that far. Because Dana and I are planning our next, we're going to take a big trip next year. This is longer term, either next spring or next fall. Fingers crossed. We're going to go to Alaska and we're going to drive to the Arctic and drive back. And so one of the thoughts I had was, Dana isn't like a super big fan of the long, like day after day after day of the long drives, right? And so I may talk to her about me and my buddy drive, because we're going to take 2 vehicles, me and my buddy driving up with our trailers and maybe meeting her in, Juneau or Anchorage or something like that. And then she hops in the car, does some cool stuff around Denali, and then flies home.
Where that'd go Oregon, Washington State, up through British Columbia.
Yes.
And what's the Northwest Territories or Yukon up near Alaska?
I think it's the Yukon.
Yukon, and well, mate, that you'd have to make sure you take the camera on that one. That would be an absolute.
Oh yeah.
Tracking.
Yeah, the only issue I have with doing that is potentially I would obviously film it for content, but getting to places I can download would be difficult.
Yeah.
Starlink is a little bit. What's that?
Take a heap of these things with you, mate, and but yeah, definitely got to get some footage. We'd love to see that. That'd be what an amazing trip up there through. Once you get British Columbia is beautiful as it is from what I've seen, and then you get up into the territories area.
Oh yeah,
before you go on that.
Well, Dana and I have been to British Columbia before, and it is gorgeous. I mean, it is one of the most beautiful places on earth.
It does look. Yeah.
I mean, you could go there and just call it a day, but yeah, and we've spent time in Alaska before, so we would, but yeah, this trip, our plan is to probably take a month or 6 weeks ish. I'm waiting for my buddy to retire. The friend of mine that's going to go with us, Kate and her husband, from the foraging video, would go with us, but he's still working full time, and depending on kind of what his employment situation looks like, will be kind of the deciding factor on when we go, because I don't want to go during peak season, which would be during the summer. I want to catch it right at the end or right at the beginning. And because they have Alaska in the summertime has mosquitoes that will like carry children off. I mean, they're devastating. And so I want to try to avoid that as much as possible and avoid crowds, because a lot of people from the US will do the same thing and take their RVs. But I would love to get up past Fairbanks. I think you can go up to the North Slope and dip your toes in the Arctic Ocean, that sort of thing.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And Slacken sent me a documentary once of that highway that they cut through. I think it was for World War II or whatever, up through there, up to Alaska. And,
that's the highway.
Yeah, that beautiful highway. But yeah, he showed the bulldozers and cut the path through there is just an amazing feat of engineering to get that highway.
The Alcan, or the Alaska Canadian Highway.
That's the one. I saw the documentary on it, but the scenery and some of the places to see up there look incredible. So that'll be a trip of a lifetime, that one, I reckon, mate.
Yeah, like I said, I have pretty minimum standards for kind of bucket list trips. It's pretty easy to please me. So maybe if I can knock off Alaska, and then we'll see Australia in the next couple of years. I got to work out. Again, I don't understand your car registration system. I'd have to work out, can I get maybe an international driver's license, or do I actually have to get an Australian driver's license, to make everything, because if I went down there, I'd want to do it legitimately. I don't want to go to somebody's country and be breaking traffic laws and that sort of thing. That would be important to me to suss all that out. If you
ever get here, mate, I'd run a Mr. Buckaroony camping event and have you as a special guest. How good would that be?
Oh, that'd be awesome. But again, like I said, it's a lot of logistics.
If I'm still YouTubing when you come down here, that will happen. I'll promise you. So anyway, mate, I'm going to get it going. Have a cup of tea. Let everyone get on with the day, and I've got to get out because I'm going camping Tuesday morning. So I've only got today and tomorrow. Tomorrow I've got to buy all the groceries and that to stock the fridge up. So I'm going to go out, start the fridge up, just start tinkering, making sure I've got everything. I'm taking all the outdoor cooking gear and all that, doing a heap of cooking videos and that at this one. So really looking forward to it, mate. So thanks for coming on again today, John. And it's good to always welcome on this channel, mate, for sure.
We'll talk soon, Buck.
Yeah, all right, mate. Catch you later.
Right.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your weekend and go the Cowboys this afternoon. I think they'll get beat. All right, see you later.
As always, we'll see you guys.
End this thing. End stream. I have no idea how to end this now. Here we go. Big red thing saying end stream.